The Vault is an intriguing digital resource, offering a fascinating glimpse into the depths of criminal history through the lens of the FBI. With thousands of documents accessible at the click of a button, it serves as an extensive repository that covers a diverse array of historical cases and profiles of well-known criminals. When you first access the Vault, you are greeted by a vast collection of files, ranging from investigative reports to photographs and correspondence. This resource is especially valuable for anyone interested in understanding the intricate world of law enforcement and the various high-profile cases that have shaped the legal landscape in the United States. You may find yourself drawn into the stories of notorious figures who have captured the public's imagination, alongside lesser-known cases that offer unique insights into the complexities of criminal investigations. One of the most compelling aspects of the Vault is its commitment to transparency. The FBI has made a concerted effort to provide the public with access to historical documents, particularly those that shed light on significant events and individuals that have played crucial roles in U.S. history. For example, the files on famous criminals like Al Capone or John Dillinger reveal the detailed efforts law enforcement undertook to bring these figures to justice. Their stories are not just about criminal activity. They also mirror the societal changes of their times, reflecting shifts in culture, economy, and technology. As you explore the Vault, you'll come across documents that detail the FBI's investigations in various realms, such as organized crime, political corruption, and civil rights violations. Each case offers a unique narrative. For example, the files on the Mafia illustrate not just the criminal networks involved, but also the broader social dynamics of an era marked by prohibition and immigration. These documents act not only as historical records, but as connections to the stories of real people affected by the decisions made by law enforcement. Another notable collection within the Vault focuses on unsolved cases. Delving into these files can be particularly gripping, as they highlight the ongoing challenges that law enforcement faces. Cold cases involving missing persons or unsolved murders evoke a sense of mystery and the quest for truth that never quite fades away. You may find yourself pondering the intricacies of each case, considering the decisions made by investigators and the weight of the evidence left behind. Additionally, the Vault contains a variety of files on infamous events, such as the assassination of prominent figures or high-stakes heists. These documents not only recount the events themselves, but also provide context surrounding them. Correspondence, witness testimonies, and expert analyses paint a vivid picture of the atmosphere and motivations at play during these pivotal moments in history. The Vault also emphasizes the importance of research and education. Students, historians, and casual learners alike can use the materials within to gather evidence and inspire critical thinking about justice and morality. With the digitization of these documents, anyone with access to the internet can become an investigator of sorts, piecing together narratives that live on in our collective memory. Moreover, the Vault's commitment to sharing information serves as a reminder of the lessons learned in the pursuit of justice. The mistakes and triumphs of law enforcement over the decades are documented here, providing a basis for understanding how investigative techniques have evolved. This evolution reflects advancements in forensics, data analysis, and even public outreach strategies, offering a comprehensive overview of the challenges faced by the FBI throughout its existence. Even the aesthetics of the Vault add to the experience. The user-friendly interface makes navigating through the vast archives straightforward. Users can search by category, such as famous criminals, unsolved cases, or particular criminal acts, ensuring that no significant detail is overlooked. This organization makes it simple for researchers to focus their explorations, while encouraging casual visitors to stumble upon new and unexpected discoveries. Perhaps one of the most engaging aspects of the Vault is the variety of primary source materials it offers. From handwritten letters and photographs to official reports and press releases, the richness of the documents sparks the imagination. Each file serves as a time capsule that transports visitors back into the 20th century or earlier, allowing them to experience history from the perspective of those who lived it. As you continue to navigate the Vault, you may find that the allure of historical criminal cases extends beyond mere curiosity. The layers of each story invite deeper analysis and reflection on the societal impacts of crime and law enforcement. For instance, the files related to civil rights-era investigations reveal the FBI's complex role during a transformative period in American history, highlighting both the agency's efforts to protect citizens and the controversy that sometimes surrounded its actions. In summary, the Vault provides an unparalleled opportunity to explore America's criminal past through the extensive resources of the FBI. Each document offers a story worth telling, from the famous to the forgotten. Engaging with this repository promises to illuminate not just the lives of criminals, but also the ongoing pursuit of justice and the moral dilemmas that accompany it. Whether you are a history buff, a curious learner, or a researcher, the Vault invites you to dive into a world of intrigue, investigation, and the human narrative behind the headlines. The story of D.B. Cooper is one that combines elements of intrigue, mystery, and the unexpected. It all began on a cloudy afternoon in November 1971 when a man who would later become known simply as D.B. Cooper boarded a Northwest Orient Airlines flight in Portland, Oregon. He was a middle-aged man, approximately 6 feet tall, with dark hair and a noticeable demeanor that suggested he was calm and collected. On board the flight, Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant claiming it contained a bomb. Initially, she thought it was a joke, but upon closer inspection, she realized it was very real. The note instructed her to sit down and listen carefully. Cooper displayed an item that resembled a bomb, which made everyone on the plane take the situation seriously. With the plane already in the air, Cooper made his demands clear. He requested $0,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle, to allow the plane to leave safely after he made his exit. As negotiations unfolded, Cooper remained calm and collected, charming the crew and even the passengers on the flight. The airline complied with his demands, and upon landing in Seattle, the money and parachutes were provided. A tense standoff occurred as the passengers were eventually released. Cooper, however, chose to stay on board with the remaining crew. He instructed the pilots to take off again, this time on a flight path that led away from the airport and into the dark, rainy skies of the Pacific Northwest. As the plane flew at a low altitude, Cooper made a bold move. Somewhere over the rugged terrain, he opened the rear staircase door of the aircraft and parachuted into the night, leaving behind a trail of mystery that continues to astound investigators to this very day. This audacious leap sparked a massive manhunt, but despite extensive searches, Cooper simply vanished. The FBI launched one of the largest and most complex investigations in U.S. history, interviewing thousands of potential suspects and following countless leads. For years, theory after theory emerged as amateur detectives and armchair sleuths speculated about who D.B. Cooper really was. Some pointed to former military personnel who had the skills necessary for such a jump, while others suggested he might be a local with extensive knowledge of the region. The terrain Cooper jumped into was not only unforgiving, but also shrouded in mist and forests, which made a thorough search complicated. Despite helicopters, trained dogs, and even divers scouring the rivers and woods, not a single clue to his whereabouts surfaced in the immediate aftermath of his leap. Speculation about his possible fate ran rampant. Did he land safely? Did he survive the harsh environment? Did he have a plan? Years later, a breakthrough seemed possible when a young boy found a decaying package on a riverbank near Vancouver, Washington. Inside the package were bundles of cash, with serial numbers matching the ransom money Cooper had been given. The discovery invigorated interest in the case, yet questions remained unanswered. Was this part of Cooper's stash? Had he successfully hidden the money? Or was it simply a coincidence? The legend of D.B. Cooper grew in popularity, and he became a figure of fascination in American culture. Movies and books have been produced, offering various takes on his daring escape. Documentaries explored all angles of the case, from the psychological profile of a hijacker to the daring nature of the crime itself. One of the most interesting aspects of the D.B. Cooper case is the idea of what it symbolizes. Cooper's actions represented a rejection of societal norms, a daring leap towards freedom, and an uncomfortable mystery that still begs for resolution. What drives a person to commit such an act? How did Cooper plan and execute his scheme with such precision? The FBI ultimately closed its investigation in 2016, officially acknowledging the case as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in criminal history. Yet, even with the case officially closed, discussions and theories about D.B. Cooper live on. Was he an anti-hero or a criminal? What impact did his actions have on the way airlines handled security? As you explore the enigma of D.B. Cooper, you may find yourself pondering not just the events of that fateful day, but the implications of his actions. Was he ahead of his time, a true modern-day outlaw who escaped the bonds of convention? Or was he simply a desperate man who made a frantic decision that spiraled into legend? The allure of mysteries often lies in their open-ended nature. The D.B. Cooper case is no exception, captivating the imaginations of many who wonder what transpired that November night. The questions continue to swirl. Where did Cooper land? How did he manage to evade capture for so long? And perhaps the biggest question of all, who was D.B. Cooper? Every year, new information surfaces and fresh theories abound. There will always be those who revisit the timeline, studying every detail, hoping to uncover a piece of evidence that has remained hidden for decades. The allure of the unknown, the thrill of the chase, and the elusiveness of truth are what keep this story alive. The D.B. Cooper case stands as a testament to the complexities of human nature, its daring, its desire for freedom, and perhaps its inherent unpredictability. Whether seen as a master of strategy or a man who pushed his luck too far, D.B. Cooper remains a fascinating character, woven into the fabric of American folklore. The story of Alcatraz is one that captivates the imagination, set against the backdrop of the cold waters of San Francisco Bay. Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, often referred to as the Rock, was in operation from 1934 until 1963. It was designed to hold the most dangerous criminals of the time, a place where the most notorious figures in American criminal history found themselves incarcerated. Among the prison's infamous inmates were gangsters, murderers, and professional criminals, all confined within the formidable walls of Alcatraz. The most thrilling and mysterious part of this prison's legacy is undoubtedly the escape that attempted to redefine its reputation. On June 12, 1962, 3 inmates, Frank Morris and brothers John and Clarence Anglin, set in motion a daring plan that would live in infamy. These men were not just prisoners. They were resourceful individuals who demonstrated incredible ingenuity and determination. Frank Morris had been in and out of institution since he was a child, while the Anglin brothers brought their own set of skills to the table, having been deeply entrenched in a life of crime from a young age. The plan to escape Alcatraz was meticulously crafted. Over the months leading up to their attempt, the trio surveyed the prison, analyzing the layout of their environment. They discovered that the showers, used for keeping the inmates clean, offered a unique opportunity to work undetected. Using makeshift tools like spoons to chip away at the walls, they crafted a way out. Starting from their cells, they built makeshift rafts and masks using various materials they had collected, including raincoats. They were relentless in their efforts, working under the cover of darkness, knowing that failure meant more than just disappointing themselves. It meant facing a life of solitude in a place known for its harsh conditions. As the night of their escape approached, they were calm and focused, relying heavily on the element of surprise. On the evening of June 11, 1962, they began their escape. They made their way through their cell walls, crawled through a narrow corridor, and eventually climbed up to the roof of the prison. The journey was arduous and fraught with danger, particularly given the infamous strength of the currents in the bay. After reaching the rooftop, they scaled down the walls and made their way to the shoreline. But the story didn't end there. With the tide against them, they were forced to put their faith in their makeshift rafts, constructed with utmost care. The trio set out into the waters of San Francisco Bay, hoping to navigate the treacherous currents to freedom on the mainland. This act of bravery, while inspiring, was laced with uncertainty. The waters were known to be dangerous, capable of claiming lives without a second thought. As mornings turned into days, news of their escape spread like wildfire. An extensive manhunt was launched, involving the Coast Guard, the FBI, and police from multiple jurisdictions. However, despite the efforts to find the escapees, no concrete evidence surfaced to suggest what had ultimately become of them. Speculations ran rife, painting scenarios ranging from successful escapes to the grim reality of drowning in the icy waters. It was a mystery that stirred the hearts and minds of the public, fueling countless theories about the ultimate fate of the 3 men. The investigation into their disappearance was thorough. Eyewitnesses reported sightings of men resembling them, while others claimed to have seen them on the mainland. Some even guessed that they might have sought refuge in Mexico. However, no definite proof ever emerged, leaving many questions unanswered and the case open-ended. Despite extensive searching by authorities, no remains were found in the waters, leading some to wonder if they had successfully eluded capture. The escape of Morris and the Anglin brothers has inspired a multitude of stories, books, and movies. It represents not just a tale of escape, but also the will to fight against the odds, embodying the quest for freedom against stark adversity. Each retelling contributes to the mythology surrounding the escape, evolving it into a cornerstone of American folklore. The story emphasizes that even in the direst of situations, hope flickers like a beacon, encouraging the brave to take risks against seemingly insurmountable challenges. Years passed, and Alcatraz continued to be a symbol of cold justice in America, eventually closing its doors to prisoners in 1963. More than half a century later, the legend of the three escapees remains a vivid chapter of its history. Today, Alcatraz stands as a historical site, a remnant of a time when courage and desperation intertwined behind steel gates and stone walls. For those intrigued by the history of Alcatraz, the escape adds a layer of excitement and drama, highlighting human ambition versus institutional power. Discussions abound about what might have happened to Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, with theories ranging from successful new lives to tragic endings in the frigid waters. Each angle offers a glimpse into the resilience of the human spirit, forever challenging the boundaries set by society and the systems in place. In a humorous twist, a family connection with the Anglin brothers emerged. An interview with their niece suggests that they might have potentially survived and even lived a quiet life. The power of family bonds illuminated this tale in an unexpected way, bridging the gap between the now and the then, providing a sense of closure, no matter how vague. In conclusion, the escape from Alcatraz remains a compelling narrative unmarred by the passage of time. It is a story of daring, courage, and the relentless pursuit of freedom in the face of overwhelming odds. While the exact fate of the escapees may remain a mystery, their legacy continues to inspire those who dare to dream of breaking free, symbolizing the universal desire for liberation and the ceaseless fight against constraints, both physical and metaphorical. The tale of Alcatraz and its daring escapees continues to be a source of fascination for researchers, historians, and everyday people alike, assuring that no one will forget the audacious challenge to one of the most secure prisons in history. The story of Ted Kaczynski, infamously known as the Unabomber, is a complex narrative involving early life, academic brilliance, a deep-seated discontent with modern society, and one of the most extensive manhunts in FBI history. Understanding this case is not just about the gruesome acts of violence he committed, but also about the underlying motivations, the lengthy investigation that ensued, and its ramifications on law enforcement and society as a whole. Ted Kaczynski was born in 1942 in Chicago, Illinois. From a young age, he demonstrated exceptional intelligence. By the age of 16, he was accepted into Harvard University, where his intellect shone brightly. However, it is during his time at Harvard, particularly through a psychological study led by Dr. Henry A. Murray, that Kaczynski was subjected to intense psychological experiments that contributed to a deep sense of alienation and paranoia about societal norms and values. This pivotal moment marked the beginning of a transformation that would lead him down a dark path. After earning a mathematics degree from the University of Michigan, and later becoming an assistant professor at the university, Kaczynski soon realized that the academic life did not suit him. In the early 1970s, he made the drastic decision to abandon his promising career in academia. He retreated to a remote cabin in Montana, where he lived a life of isolation, disconnected from the technological advancements and societal structures that he viewed as corrupt and damaging. The isolation in the woods transformed Kaczynski from a brilliant mathematician into a self-proclaimed revolutionary. He developed a strong anti-technological ideology, believing that industrial society was dehumanizing individuals. Fueled by his convictions, Kaczynski engaged in a series of bombings that would span nearly 2 decades. His targets varied, but they shared a common thread. They were individuals associated with modern technology and the industrial complex. The first bomb was sent in 1978, and over the years, he claimed responsibility for 16 attacks, resulting in 3 deaths and 23 injuries. The moniker, Unabomber, was a composite derived from the FBI's investigation, initially dubbed the Unabomber case, for universities and airlines bombing. Despite the urgency and severity of the situation, the investigation was fraught with challenges. For years, Kaczynski outsmarted police and FBI agents, evading capture while continuing his campaign of terror that left a profound impact on the country. Throughout the years of investigation, the FBI employed a wide range of tactics. They meticulously analyzed the bombs, collected evidence from crime scenes, and coordinated with law enforcement agencies across the United States. They sought help from experts in bomb making, behavioral analysis, and criminology to build a profile of the elusive perpetrator. Each attack brought new challenges, yet hints of Kaczynski's identity began to emerge during the process. The turning point in the investigation came with the publication of Kaczynski's manifesto, titled Industrial Society and Its Future. He had demanded that it be published in major newspapers, threatening further violence if his demands were not met. In 1995, the Washington Post and the New York Times published the manifesto. It served as an insight into Kaczynski's psyche, his resentment towards modern civilization and technology, and his vision of a society unfettered by industrial constraints. As people began to read the manifesto, a number of individuals recognized Kaczynski's writing style and ideologies, including his own brother, David. In a dramatic twist, David contacted the FBI after recalling Ted's past behavior and beliefs. He believed that Ted could be the Unabomber, prompting the FBI to take a closer look. This breakthrough ultimately led to the capture of Ted Kaczynski in April 1996 at his cabin in Montana. The arrest was a culmination of years of painstaking investigation. Inside the cabin, FBI agents discovered not only the bomb-making materials, but also detailed journals documenting his thoughts and plans. The evidence solidified their case against him, confirming that the man behind the Unabomber's terror was indeed the reclusive figure living off the grid. The aftermath of Kaczynski's capture reignited discussions around mental health, the impact of societal disconnection, and the sometimes blurred line between genius and madness. The Unabomber Files became critical components in understanding not just the individual responsible for the horrific acts, but also the cultural and technological landscape that may have influenced his actions. In the following years, Kaczynski was tried and convicted. His life in prison became a topic of media fascination and extensive analysis. The case served as a stark reminder of the extremes to which individuals might go when motivated by a perceived threat from society. The public grappled with the implications of Kaczynski's ideas, dissecting how technology can both enhance and endanger human life. The investigation into the Unabomber was not merely about bringing a criminal to justice. It was a deep dive into the psyche of a man who felt alienated from the world around him. For FBI agents, it was a significant test of persistence, strategy, and innovation. Investigators learned valuable lessons about the importance of collaboration, public engagement, and understanding behavioral patterns, which would shape future investigations. As new technology emerged, law enforcement agencies re-evaluated their methods. The Unabomber case showcased the potential for psychological profiles to provide insight into potential threats, thus becoming a pivotal reference point for future cases of domestic terrorism. Understanding the Unabomber serves as a cautionary tale regarding the often fragile connection between individuals and the societies they inhabit. The Kaczynski case continues to captivate not only as a serial bombing case, but also as a lens through which to examine broader issues. It raises questions about how isolation, ideology, and technology intersect in modern society. The legacy of the investigation remains relevant today, emphasizing the need for vigilance, understanding, and the importance of addressing the mental health and well-being of those who might feel marginalized by a rapidly changing world. In retrospect, the Unabomber Files offer a glimpse into the challenges faced by both the individual who committed the acts and the society that sought to understand him. The complexities of human behavior, the influence of environment, and the potential consequences of radicalization are themes that echo throughout history, reminding us of the delicate balance between technological advancement and human connection. In the early 1930s, America was gripped by the thrilling yet alarming tale of one of the most infamous criminals in history, John Dillinger. Born in 1903 in Indianapolis, Indiana, Dillinger's roots were in an ordinary family, but his path soon diverged into a life of crime. The Great Depression created a perfect storm for individuals seeking quick wealth, and Dillinger became a leading figure in the wave of bank robberies sweeping the nation. His early criminal activities began with petty theft and carjacking. However, as he teamed up with a group of criminals, including the infamous Dillinger Gang, his exploits escalated into daring bank heists that captured the public's imagination. The gang was known for its audacious robberies, as Dillinger and his associates would often burst into banks, brandishing weapons and escaping with large sums of cash. What set Dillinger apart from other criminals of his time was not just his skill, but his charisma and cunning. He had a certain charm that endeared him to the public, even as he eluded law enforcement. Dillinger's notoriety grew tremendously, partly due to the sensational coverage he received in newspapers. With headlines often portraying him as a modern-day Robin Hood, people were drawn to his story. Dillinger became a folk hero in the eyes of many, symbolizing defiance against the financial system that seemed to abandon so many during the economic downturn. Yet, while some admired him, law enforcement was desperate to bring him to justice. The manhunt for Dillinger got underway in earnest after a series of bold bank robberies across the Midwest. As he fled from state to state, crossing through Illinois, Wisconsin, and even Ohio, he left a trail of chaos in his wake. Each escape grew bolder and more reckless, leading to heightened responses from local police and federal agents. Dillinger's ability to outsmart law enforcement became almost legendary. In 1934, the Federal Bureau of Investigation took a significant interest in Dillinger's case. With the establishment of the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover, the agency began to modernize its approach to tracking down fugitives. Dillinger became public enemy number one, a title that set the stage for a dramatic showdown between the infamous outlaw and federal agents. Law enforcement agencies employed the latest techniques, forming a network to share information and track movements, and Dillinger was soon surrounded by increasing numbers of determined agents. One of the most notable incidents during the pursuit was Dillinger's daring break from the Crown Point jail in Indiana. Using a wooden gun he had crafted while incarcerated, he orchestrated a daring escape that stunned the nation. The audacity of this act only solidified his reputation as a mastermind of escape and evasion. His exploits continued to be the stuff of legend, capturing the imaginations of everyday folks and further igniting media frenzy. Despite the authorities' efforts, Dillinger managed to stay one step ahead for some time. However, his need for notoriety would ultimately lead him to take greater risks. In an effort to flaunt his lifestyle, he became careless, which would prove to be his downfall. Dillinger was spotted in several public gatherings, and his lavish lifestyle drew the attention of law enforcement. In July 1934, Dillinger's luck finally ran out. After a particularly lavish night out with associates, he found his way to the Biograph Theater in Chicago. Unknown to him, the FBI was closing in. Agents had received a tip about his whereabouts, and they set up a perimeter around the theater. As Dillinger exited the cinema, he was confronted by agents. In a tense standoff, he attempted to flee, yet the agents were ready. Shots rang out, and Dillinger was fatally wounded in the alley, ending the chase that had captured the country's fervent interest. The aftermath of Dillinger's death stirred a mix of emotions across the nation. While some felt relief that a notorious criminal had finally been apprehended, others mourned the loss of a figure they viewed as a symbol of rebellion against the establishment. His life and death have since become the subject of countless books, films, and documentaries, securing his place in American folklore. John Dillinger's legacy is complex. He embodies both the rashness of a life steeped in crime and the allure that such a life held for those struggling during the Great Depression. His story gives insight into the turbulent times of the 1930s and reflects the gritty reality of a nation in recovery. The manhunt that captured national attention serves as a reminder of the lengths to which individuals will go for freedom and the consequences that come with a life of crime. As history continues to revisit his tale, Dillinger remains an emblem of a fascinating era, reflective of both the glamour and grit of a turbulent time in American history. The Zodiac Killer remains one of the most infamous and chilling figures in American criminal history. Active in Northern California during the late 1960s and early 1970s, the Zodiac was responsible for a series of brutal murders, leaving the police and the public in a state of fear and fascination. What makes this case particularly haunting is not only the sheer brutality of the acts, but also the mysterious identity of the killer, which has never been definitively uncovered. The Zodiac Killer's first confirmed victim was high school students Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, who were shot near Vallejo, California on December 20, 1968. This tragic event marked the beginning of a series of murders that would terrify the region. Just a few months later, Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau were attacked on July 4, 1969, while parked in a remote area. The killer approached their car, opened fire, and scrawled a cryptic message that would send shivers down the spine of anyone who heard it. This note, along with others, was sent to local newspapers, stirring not only interest but also dread in the community. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Zodiac Killer case is the letters he sent to newspapers and police departments. These letters contained taunting messages and cryptograms that invited readers to decode them. The Zodiac took pride in his intellect and seemed to enjoy playing games with law enforcement. One puzzling aspect was the type of ciphers he employed. often creating an atmosphere of challenge that many amateur cryptographers attempted to decode. The complex nature of these puzzles added layers of difficulty for investigators and remained unsolved for decades, creating an allure around the case. The Zodiac Killer was famously known for his symbol, which resembled a cross circle. This insignia became a part of the legend that surrounded him, and the name Zodiac itself was derived from the astrological signs he included in his letters. In one of his most notorious communications, the Zodiac claimed that he would kill again and urged the recipients of his messages to solve his cryptic clues or face dire consequences. This declaration instilled a sense of urgency and terror in those living in the surrounding areas. As the investigations progressed, the Zodiac's crimes seemed to intensify in complexity and melancholy. Other victims were discovered, including the tragic cases of Kathleen Johns, who was abducted yet managed to escape, and the young couple, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard, who were attacked while enjoying a day at Lake Berryessa. The chilling part of this incident was that the Zodiac approached them wearing a costume resembling that of a character from a movie, further adding a sense of theatricality to his actions. In this case, he even took the time to carve a symbol into Hartnell's car to emphasize his identity, demonstrating both his boldness and desire for notoriety. Despite the tireless efforts of law enforcement and amateur sleuths alike, the identity of the Zodiac Killer remained elusive for an extended period. Investigators across California and beyond worked on multiple leads, interviewing hundreds of potential suspects and analyzing the available evidence, but the mystery continued to deepen. The case was so convoluted that it inspired numerous documentaries, books, and films, contributing to the chilling mythology that surrounds it. Various suspects have emerged over the years, each bringing their own theories and potential links to the crimes. Some hypotheses surrounding the Zodiac have revolved around a range of individuals, from men with previous criminal backgrounds to those who seem to fit a certain psychological profile. Interestingly, some amateur detectives have even linked the killer to other unsolved murders, positing that the Zodiac might have had a broader spree than previously understood. With the rise of modern forensic techniques, including DNA analysis and genetic genealogy, hopes were reignited that the cold case could finally see resolution. Investigators sought to analyze DNA from the letters attributed to the Zodiac to potentially identify him. As technology continued to advance, the Zodiac Killer's notoriety remained intact, prompting those intrigued by the case to believe closure might eventually come. This ongoing investigation illustrates the human need for answers and the desire to bring justice, even decades after the crimes occurred. The fascination with the Zodiac Killer continues to resonate through the medium of popular culture. Films and documentaries have told variations of the story, examining not just the crimes but the psychological landscape of the killer and the impact of the fear instilled in the public. Some theorists try to deconstruct his actions and motivations, while others focus on the victims, emphasizing their stories and the lives cut short by an unknown assailant. In the quest to uncover the Zodiac Killer's identity, we are often left with profound questions regarding the nature of evil and the psychology of violence. What drives a person to commit such heinous acts? What compels someone to draw others into their web with terrifying riddles? As law enforcement continues to investigate and technology evolves, the hope remains alive that one day the truth will surface, bringing resolution to a haunting chapter in criminal history. Even though the case remains unsolved, the lasting impact of the Zodiac Killer continues to shape modern investigations into criminal behavior and unsolved mysteries. The enigma he created encourages society to engage in discussions about crime, justice, and human psychology, provoking curiosity that persists through generations. In essence, the legacy of this notorious killer serves as a chilling reminder of the complexities present in the world of crime, ultimately highlighting the eternal quest for resolution in the face of profound uncertainty. In the early hours of January 15, 1947, a young woman's body was discovered in a vacant lot in Lambert Park, Los Angeles. This shocking find would mark the beginning of one of the most infamous murder cases in American history. The victim was Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old aspiring actress who would become forever known as the Black Dahlia. Elizabeth Short was born on July 29, 1924, in Hyde Park, Massachusetts. She grew up in a working-class family, and her early life was marked by struggles and challenges. As a teenager, she moved to California in hopes of finding fame and success in Hollywood. Short was known for her striking beauty and unique style, often wearing black clothing, which led to her being nicknamed the Black Dahlia. This nickname was inspired by a film noir movie called The Blue Dahlia, which was released in 1946. Short's life in Los Angeles was not easy. She worked as a waitress and struggled to secure acting roles. Despite the hardships, she maintained a party-loving lifestyle and mingled with a variety of people, often drawing attention due to her enchanting presence. However, her life took a tragic turn when she was found brutally murdered. The discovery of Elizabeth Short's body was grotesque and horrific. The body was cut in half at the waist and expertly disfigured. Shockingly, her face was drained of blood and her mouth had been cut from ear to ear, contributing to the gruesome nature of the crime. The police were immediately called, and the media frenzy began. The sensational nature of the murder captivated the public and turned Elizabeth Short into a tragic symbol of Los Angeles' underbelly. Investigation into the murder quickly became a highly publicized affair, with the press extensively covering every detail. The case drew numerous tips and leads, but investigators struggled to find any significant breakthroughs. Shortly after the discovery of her body, a mysterious letter arrived at the office of the police department, leading them to believe that the murderer might be taunting authorities. Witnesses began to come forward with stories about Elizabeth Short, reporting various encounters with her in the weeks leading up to her demise. Some described her as a vibrant young woman, while others painted a more complicated picture, suggesting that she may have been involved in risky situations and relationships. Despite these various testimonies, no clear suspects emerged. As the investigation continued, the media dubbed Elizabeth as the Black Dahlia, amplifying her story and weaving it into the cultural fabric of the time. Dozens of theories emerged, each more fanciful than the last, including accusations of involvement by high-profile individuals, including celebrities and local business owners. None of these theories were substantiated, however, and the case became a web of speculation. The Black Dahlia murder case became a cultural phenomenon, inspiring books, movies, and documentaries over the years. Writers and filmmakers have sought to uncover the truth behind the mystery, while others have used the story as a canvas to explore themes of beauty, fame, and the dark side of Hollywood. One notable work inspired by the case is James Ellroy's novel, The Black Dahlia, which fictionalizes the events surrounding Elizabeth Short's life and death and was later adapted into a film. Such adaptations often shine a light on the enduring grip the case has on public imagination. As decades passed without resolution, the case remained open, with the Los Angeles Police Department receiving hundreds of leads over the years. Investigators would often sift through these tips, but the combination of the crime's brutality and the lack of concrete evidence continued to baffle and frustrate law enforcement. Various individuals were named as suspects throughout the years, and a few even confessed to the crime, but no one was ever charged or brought to trial. In exploring the various suspects, one is struck by the tapestry of lives interwoven into Elizabeth Short's story. Suspect after suspect surfaced, each revealing fragments of deceit and intrigue. One of the most notable was George Hodel, an enigmatic doctor who was implicated by his son in the 1990s. This theory captivated true crime enthusiasts, but Hodel denied any involvement, maintaining his innocence even in death. Another significant suspect was a man named Leslie Dillon, who crossed paths with the police during their investigation. Dillon had an obsession with the case and seemed to thrive in the attention it garnered. Despite being a compelling figure, law enforcement could not connect enough evidence to pursue charges. Each promising lead would eventually fade, leaving the case untouched, like a haunting specter in the city's history. In a culture increasingly fascinated by true crime, Elizabeth Short's legacy continued to resonate. The Black Dahlia became more than just a cold case. She symbolized the victims of a world enamored with celebrity and the deadly consequences that could lie beneath the glitzy surface. Her story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dark undercurrents present in the pursuit of fame and recognition. As the years turned into decades, the mystery of Elizabeth Short remained alive, captivating generations to come. Modern technology has even reopened avenues for investigation. Forensic analysis has advanced to a point where some believe it may one day yield new insights. Cold cases like the Black Dahlia have historically sparked renewed interest as technology improves and society's understanding of criminal investigations evolves. One can't help but wonder what Elizabeth Short was really like. Beyond the headlines, what kind of life did she lead? She was a young woman with dreams and aspirations, and in her short life, she navigated the complex and often cruel world of Hollywood in the 1940s, marked by ambition and challenge. The allure of a life spent in search of stardom often masked the darker reality she faced. This complexity created a multifaceted narrative around Elizabeth Short. It uncovered the grit behind the glamour, the isolation amid the crowd, and the price of beauty in a world hungry for both. The interplay of her light and the deep shadows of her fate illuminate the essence of her story, capturing the imagination and concern of many who try to understand her life and the circumstances that led to her tragic end. Today, the Black Dahlia case is often referenced in discussions of crime and investigations, a touchstone for exploring societal values and the media's role in shaping historical narratives. The specter of Elizabeth Short continues to loom large, reminding us that the quest for the truth can be just as elusive as the tragic life she lived. Her story is not just a tale of loss, but of the endless inquiry into what happened and why, challenging us to think critically about justice and the unresolved mysteries that linger in our collective history. The Black Dahlia is a reminder that, while the murderer remains unknown, the impact of that gruesome crime reverberates through time, forever entwining Elizabeth Short's name with the narrative of early 20th century America, a story that continues to intrigue and haunt. Operation Greylord was an extensive and landmark undercover investigation conducted by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, aimed at uncovering widespread corruption within Chicago's judicial system during the 1980s. The operation is notable not only for its scale and the high-profile nature of its exposés, but also for the broader implications it had on the American legal system and public trust in the judiciary. The seeds of Operation Greylord were planted in the early 1980s when the FBI began to notice indications of corruption within the judicial system in Illinois, particularly focusing on Cook County. Whispers of bribery, fraud, and misconduct among various officials, including judges, attorneys, and court personnel, triggered concerns that required deeper scrutiny. With a reputation on the line and a duty to uphold the law, the FBI recognized the need for an extensive investigation to address these troubling issues that were undermining the integrity of the courts. Undercover agents were deployed as part of the operation. These agents often operated in disguise, using various aliases to integrate themselves into the legal community. They attended court hearings, met with judges and lawyers, and carefully documented their interactions. It was essential for them to blend into this world seamlessly, as trust was the linchpin of their investigations. By gaining access to the inner workings of the judicial system, the undercover operatives aimed to gather irrefutable evidence of corrupt practices. One of the key methods used during Operation Greylord was the use of surreptitious recordings. Undercover agents recorded conversations and transactions, capturing incriminating exchanges between various players in the system. These recordings often revealed judges accepting bribes in exchange for favorable rulings, attorneys whom clients could manipulate into getting favorable outcomes, and various court officials aiding in fraudulent practices, all while pretending to uphold the law. The name Greylord itself has an interesting origin. It was purportedly a reference to the gray robes worn by judges, signifying their role in law and justice. The name also suggested an ethos of moral ambiguity lurking within the judiciary, highlighting the battle between good and evil that was unfolding as a part of this significant investigation. As evidence mounted, the weight of corruption within the Chicago courts became increasingly clear. The agents discovered a tangled web of bribery involving numerous judges, attorneys, and other court officials. These individuals were caught taking bribes for a range of illegal activities, including ensuring favorable judgments, pushing through case dismissals, and even tampering with evidence. Remarkably, as these insights came to light, it became apparent that many of the corrupt officials had established a well-organized system for their operations, effectively pooling resources and coordinating their activities to maintain their power and avoid detection. This sophisticated structure demonstrated that the issue of corruption was not just a series of isolated incidents, but rather an ingrained practice that threatened the very foundation of justice in the region. The operation ultimately resulted in the indictment of numerous individuals, leading to a series of trials that captivated the public's attention. The fallout was swift and significant. Judges were convicted, and many faced imprisonment, while others were disbarred, tarnishing their reputations irreparably. The investigation's repercussions were not limited to the individuals directly involved. They extended to public perception of the legal system and raised questions about the integrity of judicial processes across the nation. The significance of Operation Greylord extends beyond the immediate effects on those found guilty. It acted as a catalyst for reforming judicial practices and implementing stricter oversight measures necessary to promote integrity within the legal profession. Following the revelations of the corrupt activities in Chicago, lawmakers and legal professionals came together to create new regulations aimed at curbing corruption and restoring trust in the judicial system. Additionally, Operation Greylord shed light on the vital role that investigative journalism and public watchdogs play in maintaining accountability. The media coverage surrounding the trial and the fallout from the investigation sparked public outrage and discussion about corruption in various sectors of leadership, thereby empowering citizens to hold their officials accountable. The lessons learned from Operation Greylord continue to resonate within discussions surrounding legal ethics, the importance of transparency in governance, and the necessity for ongoing vigilance against corruption. In a world constantly trying to navigate the complicated landscape of law and justice, the story of Operation Greylord serves as a reminder of the complexities and challenges that exist when individuals entrusted with upholding the law may themselves violate it. In conclusion, Operation Greylord represented a monumental effort to expose corruption within a vital institution and restore faith in a system fundamental to democracy. The investigation took considerable time, resources, and dedication from the FBI agents involved, who risked a great deal to uncover the truth. The outcomes of this extensive operation continue to echo through the corridors of law and justice, reminding all of us of the delicate balance required to maintain integrity within our highest legal institutions. The lessons learned from Operation Greylord still serve as a cautionary tale for the future, emphasizing the importance of accountability and transparency in our systems of governance. The Waco Siege stands as one of the most controversial episodes in American law enforcement history, involving a confrontation between the FBI and a religious group known as the Branch Davidians. This group, led by David Koresh, was based at a compound called the Mount Carmel Center, situated just outside Waco, Texas. The events that unfolded between February 28 and April 19, 1993, captivated the nation and raised numerous questions about the actions and decisions of the FBI, the nature of cults, and the methods used in domestic law enforcement. To understand the dynamics at play during the Waco Siege, it is essential to explore the context around the Branch Davidians. The Branch Davidians were an offshoot of the Davidian movement, which itself was a sect that separated from the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the 1950s. Under Koresh's leadership, the group adopted apocalyptic beliefs, centering their faith on the imminent return of Christ and the role they believed they would play in biblical prophecies. The group became known for its strict lifestyle and communal living, which attracted both suspicion and intrigue from outsiders. The initial confrontation between the Branch Davidians and federal authorities began on February 28, 1993, when the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, commonly known as the ATF, attempted to execute a search warrant at the compound. The ATF suspected that the Branch Davidians were stockpiling illegal firearms and misappropriating military-grade weaponry. The raid quickly escalated into a firefight, resulting in the deaths of 4 ATF agents and 6 members of the Branch Davidian community. In the aftermath of this firefight, the FBI assumed control of the situation. This marked the beginning of a 51-day standoff, during which negotiations were attempted to resolve the situation peacefully. The FBI employed various strategies to communicate with Koresh and the inhabitants of the compound. They sought to persuade the group to leave the compound by providing them with food, supplies, and the promise of their safety. However, Koresh and his followers remained resolute, barricading themselves inside while engaging in sporadic communication and negotiations with the FBI. The siege was marked by dramatic moments and intense media coverage. As the standoff dragged on, the situation grew increasingly complex. The FBI faced challenges not only from the Branch Davidians, but also from public opinion and political pressure. Some Americans viewed the FBI's actions as necessary in the face of a dangerous, cult-like group, while others saw the siege as an example of government overreach and excessive force. During the standoff, the FBI utilized various psychological tactics in an attempt to break down the group's resolve. They played loud music, including songs like Danny Boy, and employed bright lights to disrupt the residents' sleep patterns. The strategy included broadcasting messages, urging the residents to abandon the compound. Despite these efforts, the steadfastness of the Branch Davidians only seemed to increase, deepening the crisis. As negotiations continued, the FBI sought advice from mental health professionals and religious experts to understand the mindset of the Branch Davidians. However, as the days turned into weeks, the situation within the compound deteriorated. Food and water supplies became limited, increasing tensions among the residents, especially as they were living in cramped conditions. The emotional strain reportedly exacerbated existing conflicts within the group and contributed to anxiety about their future. On April 19th, the FBI concluded that the standoff could not continue indefinitely. Citing concerns about the well-being of those inside the compound and suspecting that the residents were preparing for armed conflict, the decision was made to initiate a final assault. This operation involved the use of armored vehicles to breach the walls of the compound and deploy tear gas in an attempt to force the occupants out. The assault quickly escalated into a disastrous situation. A fire broke out within the compound amidst the chaos, engulfing the facility in flames. Attempts to rescue those still inside were hampered by the intensity of the fire and the resistance from those within the compound. Tragically, 76 Branch Davidians, including children and infants, lost their lives in this inferno. The aftermath of the siege led to widespread outrage and sorrow across the nation. In the days and months that followed, investigations were launched to assess the actions taken by law enforcement agencies involved in the siege. Critics condemned the FBI's decisions, citing their aggressive tactics and the final assault's overall execution. Some believe that a more patient and thoughtful approach could have avoided the tragic loss of life. Others defended the FBI, arguing that the risks posed by Koresh and his followers warranted a strong response. The Waco Siege has had long-lasting implications beyond the immediate circumstances. It sparked widespread debates about government authority, the rights of religious groups, and how such situations are handled in America. The incident became a rallying point for those who feel marginalized by government intervention, particularly within militia groups and anti-government movements. The tragedy at Waco continues to be a topic of discussion among scholars, law enforcement experts, and those studying religious cults. In popular culture, the Waco Siege has been referenced in films, documentaries, and television series. These portrayals reflect the complexity of the events and the myriad views held about the FBI's methods and the nature of the Branch Davidians. Media representations often focus on the dramatic aspects of the siege, while raising questions about the nature of belief and authority. Overall, the Waco Siege represents a significant moment in American history, embodying the tensions between law enforcement, religious freedom, and the boundaries of government authority. The lessons learned, both in terms of crisis management and the handling of extremist groups, continue to resonate today. Understanding the factors that led to this historic confrontation can provide insight not only into the past, but also into the complexities of modern society. As we reflect on this event and its implications, we gain a better understanding of the fragile balance that must be maintained between order and freedom, authority, and individual rights. In the weeks following the September 11, 2001 attacks, the United States faced an additional wave of terror not from airplanes, but from envelopes containing deadly anthrax spores. This bioterrorism incident, often referred to as the Anthrax Attacks, targeted media offices and government officials, shaking the country once again. The story of these attacks reveals how fear can seep into everyday life and highlights the complexities of investigating crimes that are shrouded in mystery. Anthrax is a serious infectious disease caused by the bacterium Bacillus anthracis. In its most dangerous form, it can produce spores that can survive in the environment for long periods. The attacks, initiated in late September 2001, involved letters containing a white powder that was later identified as anthrax. The letters were postmarked from Trenton, New Jersey, and started their deadly journey through the postal system. Within days of the first reports, the public learned that individuals had developed anthrax-related illnesses. Initial cases were confirmed in Florida, where a photo editor for a major newspaper became ill after opening a letter. Soon after, other cases appeared in New York City and Washington, D.C., with some resulting in death. The fear of proactively handling mail surged, as people worried that any letter could be potentially harmful. The FBI quickly launched a massive investigation dubbed Operation Anthrax, aiming to track down the source of these letters. Agents analyzed the envelopes, the handwriting, and the phrases used in the letters, which contained messages like "Death to America" and "Death to Israel." They utilized modern forensic methods to try to trace down the bacteria and the anthrax spores. This was a race against time as the nation grappled with a new type of threat. While the FBI pursued various leads, they faced numerous challenges. One major difficulty arose from the nature of anthrax itself. It is a common bacterium in some areas and can be found in the environment. This meant that tracing the spores back to a specific source was an uphill battle. The investigation elicited widespread concern about potential suspects, which included anyone from domestic extremists to foreign terrorists. As weeks turned into months, the investigation unfolded amidst a backdrop of rising anxiety. Media coverage heightened the tension, with speculation about who could be behind the attacks and whether more letters would be sent. The investigation expanded to include thousands of interviews and analysis of tons of mail. The FBI received numerous tips and followed countless leads, many of which turned out to be false trails. As the story lingered in the public consciousness, the agency faced pressure to deliver results. In 2006, the investigation pointed towards a primary suspect, a scientist named Bruce Edwards. He had worked at a government laboratory and had access to anthrax strains. However, Edwards had died by suicide in 2008, leaving investigators with both a sense of closure and lingering questions. Projecting on those earlier days of fear and uncertainty, many still remember the images of hazmat-suited workers collecting samples from post offices and media offices. The government introduced measures to improve security in the handling of mail and increased readiness for potential biological threats. As the years went on, the FBI's focus shifted towards different directions, examining the various leads and unresolved elements of the case. Ultimately, the anthrax attacks not only raised the alarm about bioterrorism, but also reinforced the need for preparedness in a world that was forever changed by the events of September 11th and its aftermath. The mystery of who was responsible for these sinister letters remains partially obscured, but the investigation left an indelible mark on how the United States approaches issues related to biological threats. As time went by, more attention was drawn toward understanding how to prevent similar attacks. Biowarfare and bioterrorism became hot topics for discussion among security experts, and it showcased the pressing need for improved public health infrastructure. This incident brought about immense endeavors to bolster national security, not just in terms of combating terrorism, but in understanding and preparing for biological hazards. Today, many of the initial fears and the relentless search for clarity surrounding the anthrax attacks serve as a reminder of the perils of vulnerability, both in individuals and institutions. The complex landscape of threats has evolved, yet the enduring lessons of vigilance and preparedness resonate deeply. In reflecting on the anthrax attacks of 2001, it's crucial to acknowledge the resilience of the nation. The amalgamation of fear, urgency, and an indomitable spirit has shaped how America addresses national security and public health. As with night following day, the country forged ahead amidst trials, evolving its understanding of safety in an increasingly uncertain world. Through continual assessment and re-evaluation of threats, society strives to ensure a future where the specter of bioterrorism remains at bay, a future steeped in awareness and readiness. Thus, history becomes a pivotal teacher, one from which present generations can glean wisdom to navigate ongoing challenges in the ever-changing landscape of national security and public health. James Joseph Whitey Bulger was a notorious figure in the world of organized crime, whose life story paints a vivid picture of the underbelly of American society during the late 20th century. Born on September 3, 1929 in Boston, Massachusetts, he was the eldest of 6 children in a working-class Irish immigrant family. His upbringing in the tough neighborhoods of South Boston played a significant role in shaping his future as a gangster. As a young man, Bulger was deeply influenced by the streets, joining gangs and immersing himself in petty crime. By the 1950s, he was on a path that would eventually lead him to the top of Boston's criminal underworld. His early foray into crime included burglary and involvement in various illicit enterprises, but it was his association with the Winter Hill Gang that would define his criminal career. The Winter Hill Gang was a primarily Irish-American gang that operated in the greater Boston area. Under Bulger's leadership, the gang became a formidable power within the organized crime landscape. However, Bulger was known not only for his ruthless tactics, but also for his cunning ability to navigate the law enforcement landscape. He had a unique relationship with the FBI, particularly with Agent John Connolly, who was supposed to be working against crime, but instead collaborated with Bulger, providing him with information that helped shield him from prosecution. This unusual alliance allowed Bulger to expand his criminal empire while remaining seemingly untouchable by law enforcement. During the 1970s and 1980s, Bulger's criminal activities spanned numerous illegal ventures, including drug trafficking, extortion, and racketeering. He built a reputation for brutal violence and was linked to multiple murders, which made him a feared figure within the criminal underworld. What set Bulger apart from other mobsters was his infamous ability to blend into the community, often seen as a neighborhood hero rather than a villain. He helped local businesses, provided financial aid to families in need, and cultivated an image of loyalty and protection in the urban landscape of South Boston. Bulger's life took a dramatic turn in the early 1990s when his criminal empire began to crumble. As pressure mounted from law enforcement agencies and his former allies turned against him, he made the decision to go on the run in 1994. He disappeared from Boston, leaving behind a trail of crime and a legacy that would haunt the city. Despite being one of America's most wanted criminals, Bulger lived in hiding for 16 years, adopting a new identity and evading capture. The FBI, frustrated by their inability to apprehend him, placed Bulger on their 10 most wanted fugitives list. His evasion became a nationwide manhunt, drawing the attention of law enforcement and the media alike. Local and federal agents pursued leads that stretched across the United States and even internationally, but Bulger always seemed to be one step ahead. He moved from city to city, sometimes under various aliases, but always managed to maintain a low profile. Ultimately, in June 2011, the long saga of Whitey Bulger came to an end. Authorities received a tip-off that led them to his hideout in Santa Monica, California, where he was residing with his longtime girlfriend, Catherine Grieg. Upon his arrest, Bulger faced a multitude of charges, including racketeering, money laundering, and murder. The capture of Bulger sent shockwaves through not just Boston, but the entire criminal world, signaling the end of an era. In 2013, Bulger stood trial, and the proceedings revealed chilling details about his life, criminal activities, and connections with law enforcement. Testimonies from former associates depicted him as a charismatic, yet terrifying figure who had no qualms about using violence to maintain his power. He was eventually convicted on a variety of charges and sentenced to 2 life terms in prison. The story of Whitey Bulger serves as an example of the complexities within organized crime and the intricate relationships between criminals and law enforcement. His life underscores themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the quest for power. While he may have evaded justice for many years, Bulger's eventual capture stands as a testament to the relentless pursuit of law enforcement in their battle against organized crime. Bulger's legacy is a mixed one. To some, he was a Robin Hood figure, a man who helped his community through intimidation and violence. To others, he represented the darkest aspects of human nature, a criminal who thrived on fear and bloodshed. His life story continues to fascinate and horrify, illuminating the complex dynamics of crime, loyalty, and the consequences that ultimately follow a life of crime. The capture of such a high-profile gangster by the FBI is a reminder of the ongoing struggle to combat organized crime, a battle that, while often daunting, remains a priority for law enforcement agencies across the nation. Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer, emerged as one of America's most notorious serial killers, infamous for his brutal crimes committed in the 1980s and 1990s around the Seattle area. With 49 confirmed victims and possibly more, Ridgway's case has captivated investigators and true crime enthusiasts alike, revealing dark insights into the psyche of a killer. The journey into the mind of Gary Ridgway begins in 1949, born to a troubled family in Salt Lake City, Utah. His childhood experiences molded him into the man he would become. Ridgway's early life was marked by a dominant mother and a father who often sent him a confusing message about women. These familial dynamics contributed to Ridgway's deep-seated issues with relationships, especially with women. He later manifested these issues in alarming and horrific ways. In the late 1970s, Ridgway moved to Washington State, where he lived in and around the Seattle area. It was during this time that he began preying on vulnerable women, particularly sex workers. His strategy was deceptively simple. He would typically give them rides or offer them money before turning against them, leading to their untimely deaths. Ridgway targeted women who were often estranged from their families, further isolating them from help and protection. The investigation into the Green River murders began when the bodies of several women started being discovered near the Green River, leading to a task force dedicated to finding the killer. Law enforcement faced numerous challenges in capturing Ridgway, as he was remarkably skilled in evading detection. Over the years, detectives used various strategies to trace the killer, including creating profiles based on the victims and the context in which they went missing. Despite mounting evidence and leads, the case went cold for many years. Advances in forensic technology, particularly DNA analysis, finally began to tip the balance in favor of the investigators. In 2001, samples were collected from the victims and compared against DNA found on the bodies. The results pointed to Gary Ridgway, marking a pivotal moment in the investigation. In November 2001, police located Ridgway, who had a relatively unassuming life as a truck painter and was described as a mild-mannered and quiet individual. Upon his capture, investigators began piecing together a clearer picture of his crimes. Ridgway was charged with multiple counts of murder. During the interrogation, he initially denied the charges, but eventually, he confessed to the murders, revealing chilling details about how he lured victims, his motives, and his method of disposing of their bodies. One of the most unnerving aspects of Ridgway's confession was his cold demeanor and lack of remorse. He explained how he believed he was doing the world a favor by killing these women, whom he often regarded as disposable. His remarks shed light on his disturbed mindset and how he justified his heinous acts. In 2003, Ridgway entered a guilty plea as part of a plea bargain that spared him the death penalty. In exchange for his confession, he agreed to help law enforcement locate the bodies of his victims. This agreement led to the recovery of several remains, bringing closure to some families, while also highlighting the chilling reality of his crimes. Despite his cooperation, the brutality of Ridgway's actions left a lasting scar on the community and the families of the victims. The impact of Ridgway's crimes rippled through the Seattle area and beyond, affecting those directly involved and the general public. His case prompted discussions about issues such as gender violence, the treatment of sex workers, and the social systems that fail to protect the most vulnerable. Communities began to examine how they could address these problems more effectively to prevent tragedies in the future. The Green River Killer's story serves as a grim reminder of the lengths to which some individuals will go to satisfy their twisted impulses. Gary Ridgway's eventual conviction was a victory for the family seeking justice, yet it is also a stark illustration of the darker aspects of human nature. As we reflect on the story of Gary Ridgway, we are reminded not only of the darkness that exists within some individuals, but also of the resilience of those who fight for justice and seek to protect the innocent. The Green River Killer serves as a chilling example of the complexities of crime, the psychology of a serial killer, and the ongoing struggle to ensure safety and justice in our communities. Ridgway's case fully exemplifies the idea that evil sometimes hides in plain sight, disguised as an ordinary person. It raises essential questions about the systems in place for protecting vulnerable populations and the responsibilities of society in addressing issues of violence and crime in an effective manner. This exploration of Gary Ridgway not only serves to uncover the details of his horrific actions, but also ignites conversations about vigilance, awareness, and compassion for those at risk in society. The story of Gary Ridgway is one that underscores the importance of community involvement, law enforcement diligence, and the critical need for compassion towards those who are often overlooked. As we continue to delve into the details of such cases, we must remain aware of the human aspects of crime, the tragic stories of the victims, and the need for continual advocacy towards change and justice. On a chilly autumn evening on November 24, 1971, a remarkable event unfolded in the skies above the Pacific Northwest that would become one of the most enduring mysteries in American history. A man using the alias Dan Cooper, later known as D.B. Cooper, boarded a flight in Portland, Oregon, bound for Seattle, Washington. The events that transpired over the next few hours would capture the imagination of the public and spark numerous theories and investigations, making it a unique case of skyjacking. As the Boeing 727 cruised at an altitude of 10,000 feet, Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant, indicating that he had a bomb and meant to take over the plane. The note was initially dismissed as a prank, a misconception that would quickly fade away as Cooper revealed a briefcase containing wires and red sticks, which he claimed were explosives. The seriousness of the situation quickly dawned on the crew and the approximately 36 passengers on board. Cooper carefully outlined his demands. He wanted 4 parachutes and $0,000 in cash, a substantial sum at the time. The hijacker made it clear that if his demands were not met, he would detonate the bomb, an ominous threat that left everyone in a state of unease. The flight attendant underwent a tense negotiation period while the plane circled above Seattle, giving law enforcement time to muster a response on the ground. Within a short time, authorities complied with Cooper's demands. the passengers were released in a tense but calm manner, and the plane remained on the tarmac as a group of law enforcement officers worked to meet Cooper's requirements. Once the ransom was successfully transferred to the plane, Cooper returned the remaining flight crew to the ground. He kept several hostages, intending to use the plane in his getaway. With the crew and hostages, Cooper outlined his flight plan. He instructed the pilots to fly the aircraft to Mexico City, requiring a low-altitude flight that would keep the range of the plane limited. The plane took off again, with Cooper seeking to evade the authorities while maintaining control over the situation. Unbeknownst to him, several military aircraft were scrambled to trail the 727 from a distance, monitoring the unfolding drama in the skies. As the flight continued, Cooper's unconventional decision-making came into sharper focus. In an audacious move, he chose to jump out of the rear stairway of the plane with a parachute and the ransom money, vanishing into the night sky over the rugged terrain of the Pacific Northwest. However, he did not leave behind a clear path or much evidence of where he had gone. The plane landed safely back in Seattle, and what followed next was a nationwide manhunt and an investigation that would captivate the nation. In the days and weeks that followed, law enforcement agencies took on the monumental task of locating Cooper. Searches were conducted throughout the dense forests and rugged mountainous regions where he might have landed, and various theories were proposed concerning what could have happened to the hijacker. Nevertheless, Cooper seemingly vanished without a trace, and as the investigation progressed, leads dried up and frustration grew. In an attempt to recover the stolen money, the FBI engaged in a massive search operation. The agency explored various areas, interviewing countless witnesses, and combing through any potential evidence that might link them to Cooper's identity. Parachute experts and professionals analyzed the gear, but the fact remained that Cooper had successfully evaded capture. As time passed, many began to wonder whether Cooper had survived his daring escape or had met with misfortune during his jump into the wilderness. Since then, numerous individuals have claimed to be Cooper or have attempted to link themselves to the case, adding to the already complex fabric of folklore and speculation surrounding the hijacking. The FBI officially closed the case in 2016, although it remains open in the hearts and minds of amateur sleuths and conspiracy theorists alike. The recent discovery of bundles of cash in the Columbia River reignited interest in the case. However, it seemed unlikely to lead to any conclusive revelations. The unique mix of intrigue, danger, and audacity surrounding D.B. Cooper's actions has solidified his status as an enigmatic figure in American culture. Books, films, and documentaries have explored the hijacking, each contributing to the mythos that has grown around him. People from all walks of life have become fascinated with the D.B. Cooper case. Numerous theories about who he might have been have emerged over the years, from the plausible to the outrageous. Some suggest he was a skilled parachutist who knew the terrain, while others speculate about criminal backgrounds or military connections. Each theory seems to open the door to new avenues of thought, new discussions, and deeper inquiries into the life and motives of Cooper. While the case itself remains unsolved, the sheer audacity of Cooper's actions and the mysterious circumstances surrounding his disappearance have become ingrained in popular culture. The story has evolved, taking on a life of its own, inspiring a myriad of interpretations and representations across various media platforms. In conclusion, the story of D.B. Cooper and the skyjacking he executed on that fateful November evening is one that evokes the imagination and spurs curiosity. It remains a tantalizing puzzle that captivates the public's interest, inviting theories, explorations, and speculation. As the years go by, the mystery surrounding his identity and fate transforms into a hallmark of American folklore, a tale that continues to be woven into the fabric of our collective narrative. Much like the shadows that linger over the Pacific Northwest, the legend of D.B. Cooper remains as elusive as ever, inviting future generations to ponder one of the most intriguing enigmas in the annals of aviation history. The Atlanta child murders represent one of the most harrowing chapters in both the history of Atlanta and the broader landscape of American crime. This tragic case enveloped the city during the late 1970s and early 1980s, stirring fear and unrest among residents. A series of homicides that resulted in the deaths of at least 29 children and young adults created an atmosphere rife with uncertainty. As panic spread, local authorities quickly realized that this case required more than just their resources. They turned to the FBI for assistance, marking the beginning of a tense collaboration aimed at uncovering the truth behind these horrific crimes. In 1979, the body of 13-year-old Edward Smith was discovered, sparking widespread concern. His death was not an isolated incident. Several young African-American children had begun to disappear under suspicious circumstances. The cases varied in nature, but a troubling pattern began to emerge. This was a community in distress as families grew increasingly desperate for answers, and each missing child was a reminder of vulnerability. The investigation drew significant media attention, amplifying the urgency to resolve each case while simultaneously pressuring law enforcement. The FBI's role was crucial. The agency brought in profilers skilled in behavioral analysis, who worked on understanding the behaviors and motivations of potential suspects. This technique was an emerging field at the time, often utilized in serial murder cases. The FBI's Behavioral Science Unit, which had started gaining prominence for its work in criminal profiling, was instrumental. Agents interviewed witnesses, potential suspects, and their families, aiming to build a psychological profile that could narrow down the search. Among the critical challenges faced was the socioeconomic context of Atlanta during this period. The cases primarily involved African American children and young adults, which highlighted the intersection of race, class, and justice in the investigation. Many residents felt that the authorities were not allocating enough attention to the disappearances early on, contributing to growing distrust and frustration within the community. The lack of resources and urgency in addressing these cases fed public outcry. The FBI's involvement also drew upon their expertise in finding patterns among victims and the places where they were last seen. Patterns of abduction, similarities in the circumstances surrounding disappearances, and modus operandi were all examined closely. In addition, agents utilized community engagement, holding meetings to gather information and foster trust, which was critical in an environment where anxiety and distrust were escalating. As the investigation progressed, the FBI collaborated closely with the Atlanta Police Department and state authorities. These collaborations involved sharing vital intelligence, coordinating search efforts, and utilizing advanced technology of that period to analyze the evidence collected. Law enforcement agencies learned to leverage community resources, employing volunteers and local organizations to share information through flyers and community outreach. The community's hope soon turned to despair, however, when additional bodies were discovered. Many were found in abandoned areas or secluded spots, sparking dread among parents and guardians. The FBI faced the difficult challenge of not only apprehending those responsible, but also working to prevent further tragedies. The task was daunting, compounded by the psychological toll it took on families and the constant press questioning the effectiveness of the investigation. An extensive investigative strategy was implemented, which included surveillance and a focus on notorious locations. Detectives began profiling potential suspects based on characteristics gleaned from interviews and reports. Their insights informed strategies to increase police presence in certain neighborhoods, aiming to bring reassurance to frightened families. Amidst twists and turns in the investigation, community activism became a vital element. Parents and local organizations began hosting vigils, raising awareness about the disappearances. Meanwhile, the media remained fixated on the case, amplifying the public's response. This outpouring of support and awareness created momentum, making it difficult for both local law enforcement and the FBI to ignore these collective voices demanding justice. In 1981, a significant breakthrough occurred. Wayne Williams, an Atlanta native, was arrested after a series of events tied him to several murders. The FBI had meticulously gathered circumstantial evidence that pointed to Williams. His trial became a lightning rod for both local and national attention, drawing scrutiny not only regarding the criminal acts, but also the myriad of underlying societal issues that the case exposed. The tensions surrounding Wayne Williams' arrest also sparked a multitude of theories and debates about the real extent of his culpability, or the possibility of a broader network of conspirators. Despite the conviction of Wayne Williams, questions remained. Over the years, the case has been re-examined by various journalists, documentarians, and historians. Many have sought to uncover the complexities of this dark chapter in Atlanta's history. The themes of race, community, justice, and the failings of law enforcement are often discussed in modern analyses. The impact of the missing children case is still felt in conversations about safety, urban identity, and community cohesion. The role of the FBI in the Atlanta child murders exemplifies how federal and local entities can come together to tackle unique and challenging cases. Their involvement catalyzed public interest, pushed investigative boundaries, and ultimately contributed to the eventual resolution of these murders. However, it is worth noting that no amount of investigative fervor could undo the grief created by these heinous acts. While the crimes have garnered a specific place in criminal history, they have also served as a reminder of ongoing issues. The social and racial dynamics revealed during the investigation continue to resonate today, inviting discussions about how communities can work collaboratively with law enforcement to ensure safety and accountability. The complex tapestry of the Atlanta child murders includes elements of tragedy and resilience, forever marking the city and its inhabitants. As new generations learn about this grim part of history, it invokes a sense of responsibility to ensure that such events never repeat themselves. The legacy of the murdered children, the search for truth and justice, and the inquiry into the systemic failures of the era shape ongoing conversations about community safety, support, and the sanctity of childhood. The FBI's involvement in the Atlanta child murders encapsulates a key moment in the ongoing narrative of crime, justice, and the collective memory of a community seeking healing. The FBI's 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list, often simply referred to as the 10 Most Wanted list, serves as a vital tool in the relentless pursuit of justice. This list represents some of the most notorious criminals who are sought after for serious offenses, ranging from violent crimes to organized criminal activities. To understand the significance of this list, it is essential to delve into its origins, the types of individuals who commonly find themselves on it, and some of the most notorious criminals that have made their mark in history. The roots of the FBI's 10 Most Wanted Fugitives list trace back to the early 1950s. In March of 1950, the FBI received a request from a reporter for a list of the most dangerous criminals in America. This led to the idea of a national list that could help engage the public in the pursuit of fugitives. The initial list was published in the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division and quickly gained attention, helping to catalyze the agency's efforts in tracking down wanted individuals. The first official 10 Most Wanted list was introduced by FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover on March 14, 1950. The list was designed not just to identify dangerous criminals, but to encourage the public to aid in their capture. It was a novel concept at the time, creating a sense of urgency and involvement among ordinary citizens. As the media picked up on the stories of these fugitives, many became household names. For example, one of the original fugitives on the list was Thomas James Holden, wanted for murder and robbery. One of the primary objectives of this list is not only to inform the public, but also to elicit assistance in apprehending these fugitives. The FBI recognizes that collaboration with citizens can yield valuable tips and information, leading to successful arrests. As a result, the agency often publicizes these cases through various media channels, including social media, television, and newspapers. This approach has not only amplified the reach of the list, but also made it a part of popular culture. Throughout the decades, various criminals have gained notoriety through their presence on the 10 Most Wanted list. For instance, John W. Hinckley Jr., who attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan in 1981, was briefly featured on the list. His case drew national attention and raised questions about mental health and security measures surrounding public figures. Hinckley's name on the list served to highlight how even those involved in high-profile cases can become fugitives. Another notorious figure was Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the September 11th attacks. He was placed on the 10 Most Wanted list shortly after the attacks, and became one of the most sought-after criminals in history. His status propelled significant military and intelligence efforts by the United States and its allies. This shows how the list can have implications that reach far beyond the individual cases, and can affect international relations and security. The design of the list has evolved over the years, adapting to the changing landscape of crime and law enforcement. In the early years, the focus was heavily on individuals wanted for violent crimes and anti-government activities. However, as time progressed, the FBI began to include criminals associated with white-collar crimes, human trafficking, and cybercrimes. This is reflective of the growing complexity of criminal activities in the modern world. One of the more recent additions to the list is the case of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the infamous Mexican drug lord known for his role in the Sinaloa cartel. He became a symbol of the ongoing battle against drug trafficking and organized crime, representing the challenges faced by law enforcement. His inclusion on the list highlighted the global nature of crime and the need for international cooperation in apprehending fugitives. The process of adding someone to the 10 Most Wanted list is selective and deliberative. The FBI evaluates each case based on the severity of the crime, the threat posed to the public, and the potential for capture. These decisions are taken seriously, with considerations for how the individual's capture could aid other investigations or prevent further criminal activities. Once placed on the list, fugitives often face not only the law, but also public scrutiny, which can complicate their efforts to evade capture. In addition to notorious criminals, the list has also included individuals whose crimes resonate with the public due to their shocking nature. For example, the case of Elizabeth Smart, who was kidnapped at a young age and later found alive, captivated the nation. The perpetrator, Brian David Mitchell, was wanted for her abduction. This case exemplified the list's role in rallying public interest and support in finding these individuals. The list has proven successful in many instances. Numerous leads from the public have resulted in arrests, showcasing the power of community involvement. Famous cases have often unfolded in unexpected ways. For example, the capture of Robert William Fisher, who was wanted for the murder of his family in Arizona. He eluded authorities for years, but information from the public ultimately led to new leads and subsequent developments in the case. Another interesting aspect of the 10 Most Wanted list is the rewards offered for information leading to the capture of fugitives. These rewards can reach into the hundreds of thousands of dollars and serve as an extra incentive for tips. This is a strategic move to encourage individuals who might have information they are hesitant to share due to fear or intimidation. The promise of a financial reward often prompts those who might otherwise remain silent to come forward. As of today, the 10 Most Wanted list remains a relevant tool for law enforcement. The criminals on the list are frequently updated as new fugitives emerge and others are apprehended. The FBI uses technology and data analysis to refine its search efforts, employing tools such as facial recognition software and social media analytics. While the face of crime may change, the core mission of the 10 Most Wanted list remains the same: to protect the public and bring dangerous fugitives to justice. The flash of media attention on wanted fugitives can also have an interesting psychological impact. It can create a sense of fear among communities and a feeling of urgency to pursue justice, often prompting individuals to be more vigilant about their surroundings. This phenomenon emphasizes the psychological interplay between crime, law enforcement, and societal reaction. Reflecting on the history of the 10 Most Wanted list, we see a tapestry of stories that intertwine with broader societal issues. From raw examinations of human nature to explorations of the justice system, the cases embodied within this list act as mirror reflections of the complexities of modern society. By engaging with the stories of these wanted individuals, we explore fundamental questions about morality, justice, and the very nature of crime in our communities. In conclusion, the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list is far more than just a record of fugitives. It is a powerful tool that engages the public, influences law enforcement strategies, and tells compelling narratives of crime and justice in America. Through its storied history, the list has brought notorious criminals to justice, highlighting the essential role of community involvement and the ever-evolving nature of crime. As new fugitives emerge and societal dynamics shift, the 10 Most Wanted list remains an enduring symbol of the struggle between law and disorder. Each name listed is a reminder of the ongoing need for vigilance, collaboration, and the relentless pursuit of justice in our society. The Rosenberg case is one of the most controversial espionage cases in American history. It revolves around Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, a married couple who were accused of spying for the Soviet Union during the height of the Cold War. Their trial, conviction, and eventual execution in the early 1950s sparked heated debates about legality, morality, and the extent of government power. To understand the Rosenberg case, we must delve into the historical context of the time. The late 1940s and early 1950s witnessed a fierce rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, commonly known as the Cold War. Amidst this global tension, both nations were in a race to develop and stockpile nuclear weapons, following the use of atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. The fear of communism was rampant, and accusations of espionage were frequent, with many individuals and organizations being scrutinized for their political beliefs and associations. Julius Rosenberg was an electrical engineer and a member of the Communist Party. Ethel Rosenberg, his wife, was also involved in communist activities, though her role was often debated and scrutinized throughout the trial. Their alleged crime was transmitting atomic secrets to the Soviet Union. The prosecution claimed that they played a pivotal role in providing critical information that contributed to the Soviet Union's successful development of nuclear weapons. The case against the Rosenbergs was built largely on the testimony of other individuals, most notably David Greenglass, Ethel's brother, who was an engineer at the Los Alamos laboratory, where the Manhattan Project was conducted. Greenglass testified that Julius had recruited him while he was working at Los Alamos, and that Ethel had aided in the espionage efforts by typing up documents and helping to pass information. Despite a lack of direct evidence linking the Rosenbergs to the espionage activities and significant doubts about the credibility of some witness testimonies, they were both found guilty in March 1951. The trial was marked by a media frenzy, which further fueled public interest and concern about the perceived threat of communism. The prosecution pushed for the death penalty, arguing that the actions of the Rosenbergs had endangered national security and resulted in the loss of lives. In April 1951, the Rosenbergs were sentenced to death. Their case continued to draw attention and controversy during the appeals process, with many arguing that they did not receive a fair trial. Supporters claimed that socio-political biases influenced the outcome, pointing to the anti-communist hysteria that permeated American society at the time. Numerous public campaigns sprang up in defense of the Rosenbergs, arguing that they were victims of a politicized judicial system. Many viewed their execution as a stark reminder of the era's paranoia regarding communism and the lengths to which the government would go to suppress dissent. Critics contended that the Rosenbergs were made examples to instill fear in those who might consider opposing U.S. policies. Despite the controversy surrounding their trial and conviction, the death sentences were upheld. On June 19, 1953, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed in the electric chair at Sing Sing Prison in New York. Their deaths marked a significant moment in American history, igniting debates about civil liberties, governmental authority, and the morality of capital punishment. Years later, the ethical implications of the Rosenbergs' case continued to resonate. The Cold War had transformed the American landscape, shaping policies and public opinion for decades. As new evidence emerged over the years, historical analysis re-examined the roles of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, revealing layers of complexity in the espionage narrative. In the 1990s, the release of classified documents and KGB archives prompted further examination of the case. Some historians argue that Julius may indeed have been guilty of relaying atomic information to the Soviets, a claim supported by decrypted Soviet intelligence communications. Other documents, however, suggested that the technical data he passed on was not as critical as initially believed. Ethel's role in the espionage activities remains a topic of debate among researchers and historians. Many argue that she was more of a political activist than an actual spy, and that her conviction was deeply flawed and influenced by a desire to punish her husband. Some have criticized the prosecution for using her as leverage against Julius, which has fueled further discussions about women's roles in espionage and politics during the Cold War era. The legacy of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg persists as a potent symbol in discussions surrounding governmental overreach and human rights, with many viewing their case as a cautionary tale about the dangers of hysteria and fear-driven policies. Their trial may have ended in tragedy, but it also catalyzed conversations regarding justice, due process, and civil liberties that continue to shape the legal and political landscapes to this day. In summary, the case of the Rosenberg Spies serves as an emblematic episode from a turbulent period in American history, reflecting the complexities of espionage, the legal system, and the ideological battles that marked the Cold War. It invites us to consider the lasting impacts of historical events on societal values, and the ongoing quest for justice and truth in a world fraught with mistrust and suspicion. The fascinating tapestry of their lives and the era they inhabited encourages us to reflect on the broader implications of loyalty, morality, and the pursuit of security in a conflicted world. The story of the Lindbergh Kidnapping begins in the early 1930s when Charles Augustus Lindbergh, a name that would become synonymous with aviation, was at the height of his fame. Lindbergh had captured the world's attention in 1927 when he became the first person to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic Ocean, from New York to Paris. His remarkable feat made him an international hero, but it was not just his accomplishments in flight that would make headlines in the years to come. In 1932, Charles Lindbergh and his wife, Anne Morrow Lindbergh, welcomed their first child, Charles Jr., into the world. The baby was born into a life of privilege, and privilege often comes with its own set of trials. Despite the joy that Charles and Anne felt at the arrival of their son, their lives took a dark turn on the night of March 1, 1932. That evening, the Lindbergh family was settled in their home in Hopewell, New Jersey. Their son, a mere 20 months old, was in his nursery, and everything appeared to be serene. However, after putting the baby to bed, the Lindberghs were confronted with a nightmare when they discovered that their baby had been kidnapped. It was a crime that horrified the nation. The baby was taken from his crib under the cover of night, and the sudden disappearance sent shockwaves throughout the country. The kidnapping's audacity shocked the Lindberghs, but it did not take long for the ensuing investigation to capture national attention. News of the crime spread rapidly, and the American public was gripped by the unfolding saga. This was a case for the ages, with the Lindberghs at the center of it all, a high-profile couple touched by the tragedy of a crime that seemed unthinkable. As the investigation began, the Lindberghs received a ransom note demanding $0,000 for the safe return of their child. The note was hastily scrawled and came with instructions that left the family vulnerable and terrified. The note demanded that Charles Lindbergh create a series of denominations in the ransom payment, further complicating matters and drawing out the investigation. Yet, despite the circumstances, Charles remained determined to do whatever it took to rescue his son. Local authorities, along with the New Jersey State Police and even the Federal Bureau of Investigation, jumped into action. They poured resources into the case, working day and night to uncover any possible leads that could lead them to little Charles. The extensive search for the child involved exhaustive interviews, investigations into the ransom note, and even the gathering of a broader profile of the criminals believed to be involved. Within days, an extensive search was underway. Flyers with Charles Jr.'s photo were circulated, and posters appeared across states. The public united in support, each person hoping to see the little boy return safely. Various theories sprang to life, ranging from suspicions about acquaintances to the possibility of an organized ring of criminals running rampant in that era. As weeks passed, the agony of uncertainty weighed heavily on the Lindbergh family. Then, abruptly, on May 12, 1932, tragedy struck. The body of Charles Jr. was discovered nearby, and this grim detail turned the search effort into a murder investigation. The body was found just a few miles from the Lindbergh residence, and it was evident that the little boy had suffered greatly before his untimely death. This devastating discovery fired up the investigation even further. Authorities began to employ every resource at their disposal, conducting interviews, gathering evidence, and working tirelessly to connect the dots. As the investigation unfolded, various suspects emerged. Among these was Bruno Richard Hauptmann, a German immigrant who had previously been in financial distress and was later linked to the ransom money. The prosecution of Hauptmann began in 1935, and the courtroom became the epicenter of public fascination. The trial was a media sensation. It drew massive crowds, with journalists clamoring to cover every moment. The prosecution presented a compelling case, and included the evidence of Hauptmann's handwriting as a match to the ransom notes, as well as other incriminating evidence, including the discovery of the ransom money in his home. Throughout the trial, Hauptmann maintained his innocence, asserting that he was framed and had no involvement in the tragic events that transpired. Nevertheless, the jury found him guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to death. This verdict stirred up a hornet's nest of reaction from the public. Many felt that justice had been served, but others called for leniency, arguing the necessity for careful consideration of every piece of evidence and the complexities surrounding the case. In a dramatic conclusion to a sensational story, Hauptmann was executed in New Jersey's electric chair on April 3, 1936, but issues surrounding the case and the larger implications echoed for many years to come. The Lindbergh kidnapping case fundamentally shifted American society in important ways. It highlighted not only the vulnerabilities of even the most famous families, but also brought to the forefront the issue of child safety and the role of the media in high-profile criminal cases. The aftermath of the case saw profound changes, including the introduction of Lindbergh law, which made kidnapping a federal crime. This evolution in law enforcement legislation came about as a direct response to the brutality that Charles Lindbergh and Anne Morrow Lindbergh experienced, showcasing just how much a single tragic event can influence legal frameworks and set new public standards. Through it all, the resolve and heartbreak of the Lindbergh family resonated across the nation. Their ordeal transformed them, not only as individuals, but also as parents dedicated to honoring the legacy of their lost child. They became advocates for the protection of children and pushed for awareness about the pervasive dangers that lurked in society. The shocking events surrounding the disappearance of Charles Jr. and the emotional upheaval facing the Lindbergh family would leave a lasting mark on both the media and the public's consciousness. In a tragic irony, the fame that had once been synonymous with his name became intertwined with a chilling legacy. The case continued to provoke discussion and speculation for years on end, capturing the imaginations of many, while inspiring numerous books, films, and documentaries. More than just a kidnapping, the Lindbergh case represented broader complexities, such as fame, tragedy, and the intersection of justice, in a world that was increasingly aware of societal and familial vulnerabilities. It served as a reminder of the profound impacts that crime can have, not only on the victims and their families, but on the culture at large. Thus, the legacy of the Lindbergh kidnapping remains an indelible part of American history. The questions surrounding the case linger, and the experience itself evolved far beyond that fateful night in March, unfolding into a story that resonates with those who reflect on what justice looks like and the unending quest to protect what is most precious in life. The Oklahoma City bombing stands as one of the most devastating incidents in American history. On April 19, 1995, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building was targeted in a bombing that resulted in the tragic loss of 168 lives. This act of domestic terrorism prompted one of the most extensive investigations undertaken by the Federal Bureau of Investigation in its history. The investigation began just moments after the explosion. Responders faced the chaotic scene in which the aftermath unfolded like a nightmare. The destruction was immense. The building, which housed various federal agencies, was obliterated, with wreckage and debris strewn across the surrounding area. First responders, including law enforcement, firefighters, and medical personnel, rushed to the scene, struggling to rescue survivors while managing the overwhelming devastation. As the dust settled, the FBI quickly took charge of the investigation. It employed a multifaceted approach, combining forensic science, witness interviews, and national intelligence resources. Agents collected crucial evidence from the bomb site, including remnants of the explosive device, which played a key role in defining the case. The FBI examined the chemical composition of the explosives used, linking it to a specific type of fertilizer and fuel oil, commonly known as ANFO. This began to narrow down their search for potential suspects. Investigators also focused on the timing of the attack. The bombing occurred at a time when the building was particularly busy. Many mothers had taken their children to a daycare center located inside the building, which tragically contributed to the high casualty rate. As regretful as it was, this detail became an important part of the investigation narrative. Agents combed through surveillance footage from nearby businesses and traffic cameras, searching for any signs of suspicious activity leading up to the bombing. In the days following the attack, the FBI received numerous tips from the public. As information flowed in, the investigation developed leads that pointed towards Timothy McVeigh, a former soldier who had expressed anti-government sentiments. McVeigh was known to frequent militia circles and had openly criticized the federal government, particularly in reaction to the Waco Siege and the Ruby Ridge standoff. His beliefs and grievances were indicative of a broader militancy that had been growing among certain anti-government factions in the United States. The break in the case came shortly after McVeigh's vehicle was identified. He had been pulled over for driving without a license plate, and during the stop, authorities discovered firearms in his vehicle. This encounter led investigators to connect him with the bombing. They quickly apprehended him and began to unravel his connections and motives. McVeigh was not alone in his actions. The FBI soon learned that he had a co-conspirator, Terry Nichols, who was instrumental in the planning and execution of the bombing. The investigation expanded to include Nichols, as agents pieced together the timeline of events leading up to the bombing, revealing the meticulous planning that had taken place. As more details came to light, the FBI worked tirelessly to gather evidence against both men. Investigators collected witness testimony, analyzed financial records, and scrutinized phone records to establish a comprehensive picture of the conspiracy. The social environments in which McVeigh and Nichols operated were also examined, revealing a network of extremist ideology that underscored their actions. The complexities of the investigation were compounded by the sheer scale of the tragedy. Families had been torn apart, and the sense of loss permeated the community and the nation at large. The FBI understood the need not only for justice, but also for healing in the wake of such horror. The proceedings that followed were historic. McVeigh was convicted in federal court and sentenced to death. His trial became a focal point for discussions surrounding domestic terrorism and how to effectively combat it. Nichols faced similar charges in state court, where he was also found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. The FBI's investigation opened up a larger discourse about domestic terrorism. The aftermath of the Oklahoma City bombing led to enhanced scrutiny of extremist groups, clearer understanding of legislative responses to terrorism, and an evaluation of public safety concerns. The agency implemented new strategies for tracking and combating such threats, recognizing the importance of community intelligence and vigilance. Public, national, and international reactions to the bombing highlighted the challenges of dealing with homegrown violent extremism. Law enforcement agencies at all levels began to coordinate more effectively, sharing intelligence and resources to strengthen security in public spaces and government buildings. The lessons learned from this tragedy have informed policies and preventative measures for countering domestic terrorism. As we reflect upon the Oklahoma City bombing, it serves as a sobering reminder of the potential for violence that exists within society. The investigation by the FBI not only led to justice for the victims, but also prompted a nationwide dialogue about safety, security, and the responsibility of communities to remain vigilant against threats. The courage and dedication of those who responded to that fateful day, as well as the relentless work of investigators, showcased the resilience of a nation in the face of adversity. The legacy of the Oklahoma City bombing continues to be felt, influencing legislation, public policy, and community awareness regarding domestic terrorism and national security issues. The lessons learned from that day remind us of the importance of unity, healing, and the ongoing quest for peace in our society. The FBI's investigation remains a testament to the painstaking efforts of many individuals who sought to bring justice and understanding to a tragic chapter in American history. Through it all, the resilient spirit of the survivors, families, and first responders has stood as a beacon of hope, showcasing how communities can come together to recover and rebuild after such profound loss. As we look back, we honor the memory of those lost and strive to ensure a safer future for all. The commitment to justice and the fight against violence remains as pertinent today as it was in the wake of the Oklahoma City bombing. The Watergate investigation is one of the most significant political scandals in American history, showcasing the complex intertwining of power, ethics, and the pursuit of truth. At the heart of the scandal was the 37th President of the United States, Richard Nixon, whose administration was ultimately brought down by a series of events that began with a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in the Watergate office complex in Washington, D.C. on June 17, 1972. To understand the gravity of the situation, it is essential to delve into the nature of the break-in and how it initially seemed like a simple burglary. The 5 men arrested in the Watergate complex were members of the Nixon administration connected to a group known as the Committee to Re-elect the President, or CRP. Their mission was to wiretap the opposition's phones and steal documents that could provide a political advantage for Nixon's re-election campaign. The immediate aftermath of the break-in seemed to fade quickly from the public consciousness. However, a dedicated group of journalists at the Washington Post, particularly Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein, began to unravel a much larger story. Their investigation led them to the trails of money and connections that linked the burglars to the higher echelons of the Nixon campaign. They pursued leads tirelessly, meticulously verifying information and uncovering a web of deception that reached into the Oval Office. The role of the FBI became increasingly significant during this unfolding drama. Initially, the Bureau was called in to investigate the break-in, led by Director J. Edgar Hoover. However, Hoover had recently passed away, and the new director, L. Patrick Gray, faced immense pressure from the White House to limit the scope of the investigation. This created a clash between the FBI's mandate to uncover truth and the political desires of those in power. Despite attempts to hinder the investigation, the FBI agents involved persevered. They recognized that they were not merely dealing with a burglary, but uncovering a deep-rooted conspiracy involving high-ranking officials. The agency meticulously gathered evidence, including financial records, documenting how campaign funds were misappropriated to cover up illicit activities. Each new piece of evidence provided further proof of an orchestrated effort to undermine not just the democratic process, but the very foundations of governance. In February 1973, the Senate Watergate Committee was formed to explore the entire scandal further, widening the scope of inquiry. The FBI played a crucial role in providing evidence and testimony that highlighted the extent of wrongdoing. As investigations progressed, it became clear that the involvement of the White House extended far beyond simple political dirty tricks. There were illegal wiretaps, conspiracy, and cover-ups that led all the way to the highest office in the nation. This period was marked by intense public scrutiny and a growing sense of unease towards Nixon's administration. Many Americans began to ask tough questions about accountability and integrity in government. The secrets being revealed by the investigative journalists, combined with the hard evidence compiled by the FBI, turned the Watergate scandal into a national phenomenon that captivated the nation's attention. As the investigation continued, shocking testimonies emerged, including the infamous recordings of Nixon's conversations in the White House. These tapes captured discussions about the cover-up and indicated Nixon's direct involvement, demonstrating a blatant disregard for the rule of law. When the Supreme Court ruled that Nixon had to turn over the tapes, the case took an unforeseen turn. The contents of the tapes amplified public outrage, revealing just how deep the scandal ran. The culmination of the Watergate investigation came in the summer of 1974, when the House Judiciary Committee approved articles of impeachment against Nixon. Facing overwhelming evidence and increasing calls for his resignation, Nixon made the historic decision to step down on August 8, 1974. His resignation marked the first time a sitting president had left office in this manner, forever altering the landscape of American politics. The Watergate investigation had lasting impacts beyond Nixon's resignation. It ushered in a new era of political accountability and transparency. Citizens became more vigilant, demanding ethical governance from their leaders. The event unleashed waves of reforms aimed at campaign finance, government oversight, and greater scrutiny of elected officials and their actions. In retrospect, the Watergate scandal illustrates the delicate balance between power and accountability, and the vital role that investigative journalism and federal law enforcement play in safeguarding democracy. The courage displayed by members of the FBI, journalists, and others involved in the investigation serves as a reminder of the unwavering commitment needed to pursue truth and maintain the integrity of the democratic process. The effects of the Watergate scandal continue to resonate in contemporary politics. Investigative journalism is still regarded as an essential pillar of democracy, holding those in power responsible for their actions. The fear of scandal and the hope for transparency remains a potent force in shaping political narrative and behavior. Ultimately, Watergate is more than just a scandal. It is a cautionary tale about the importance of vigilance, ethical behavior in politics, and the role of institutions like the FBI, tasked with protecting democracy and the rule of law. The dedication to uncovering the truth showcased the resilience of American democracy and the commitment to justice, setting an example for future generations to follow. In the early 1970s, a dramatic and shocking event gripped the United States and sparked debates about media sensationalism, crime, and social unrest. The story revolves around Patricia Hearst, commonly known as Patty Hearst, the granddaughter of publishing magnate William Randolph Hearst. Born into wealth and privilege, her life took a drastic turn when she was kidnapped by a revolutionary group called the Symbionese Liberation Army, or SLA. The SLA was a small, armed group that espoused radical political views, advocating for a socialist revolution in the United States. They believed in the redistribution of wealth and were vehemently opposed to what they considered systemic oppression. Patty Hearst's abduction in February 1974 was not only dramatic but also a reflection of the turbulent social climate of the time, marked by civil rights movements, anti-war demonstrations, and widespread discontent with the establishment. On February 4, 1974, Patty was taken from her apartment in Berkeley, California, by armed men who claimed to be SLA members. They were not just ordinary criminals, they saw themselves as freedom fighters. Patty's father, Randolph Hearst, immediately launched a search and offered a substantial reward for her return. This event captured significant media attention, with news outlets broadcasting every development in the case. The SLA initially communicated with the Hearst family through demands for money and other resources. They claimed that Patty's abduction was not just a kidnapping, but an act of liberation, aimed at making a political statement. The group demanded that the Hearst family donate a large sum of money to various food banks and hunger relief programs, attempting to highlight the issues of poverty and income inequality in America. This was a sophisticated strategy, first aiming to position Patty as a victim and then as a participant in their cause. As the days turned into weeks, news reports revealed that Patty had seemingly begun to change. In a series of recorded messages, she appeared to express support for the SLA and their causes. The public was captivated by this dramatic twist, leading many to wonder if she had been brainwashed or if she had genuinely embraced the ideology of her captors. It raised questions about loyalty, coercion, and the human psyche under duress. In April 1974, the narrative took another turn when Patty was seen robbing a bank with SLA members as part of their operations. This event stunned the country. The daughter of an extremely wealthy family, caught on camera wielding a firearm and demanding cash, was a surreal image that seemed to encapsulate the chaos of the era. The implications were profound, as many struggled to reconcile her transformation from a privileged heiress into an active participant in criminal activities. The concept of Stockholm Syndrome became a focal point of discussions around Patty's case. This psychological phenomenon describes situations in which hostages develop positive feelings toward their captors, sometimes even defending them. Experts debated whether Patty had been coerced into her actions, or if her beliefs had genuinely shifted during her days of captivity. Her case became a classic example of how trauma affects the human mind and behavior. The story reached its climax in late September 1975, when Patty was captured in Los Angeles alongside several SLA members. The FBI had launched a massive manhunt, and the dramatic arrest of the group was a culmination of weeks of tension. The authorities arrested Patty and charged her with robbery and other crimes, and she was eventually tried and convicted. During her trial, she maintained that her participation in the bank robbery was the result of coercion and threats made by the SLA. The media frenzy surrounding the trial was intense. The press was fascinated not only by the crime itself, but also by the complexities of Patty's situation. As a young woman caught in a web of ideological fervor and personal transformation, she became both a symbol of rebellion and of privilege, captivating both the public and the media. Despite her high-profile trial, Patty Hearst's life continued to evoke curiosity long after the events had unfolded. She was sentenced to 7 years in prison, but she served only 2 years before her sentence was commuted by President Jimmy Carter. Following her release, she appeared in films and even wrote a memoir. The complexities of her experience, combined with her dramatic public narrative, ensured that her story would linger in the cultural consciousness for years to come. The Patty Hearst case also had broader implications, highlighting societal divisions and the growing distrust in institutions. It demonstrated how quickly perceptions could change and how individuals and communities could be drawn into confrontations that seemed far removed from their everyday lives. The media portrayed her almost as a tragic figure, caught between two worlds and two ideologies, while others viewed her as a criminal who chose to side with terrorists. Throughout the decades that followed, the public continued to be fascinated by Patty Hearst. Documentaries, books, and films explored the intricacies of her kidnapping, the subsequent trial, and the larger implications of her experience. Psychologists studied her case to understand the psychological dynamics of coercion, identity, and allegiance, while sociologists analyzed the impact of social movements and radicalism in contemporary society. As we reflect on Patty Hearst's abduction and its aftermath, it becomes clear that this story goes beyond the dramatic details of a kidnapping and courtroom drama. It embodies questions of personal choice, societal expectations, and the nature of human relationships under extreme conditions. The events prompted discussions about the complexities of loyalty and betrayal and challenged conventional notions of victimhood and agency, leaving an indelible mark on American culture and history. In the end, the story of Patty Hearst remains a vivid example of the unpredictability of human behavior and the entwined relationship between power, ideology, and identity. The narratives that arose from her experience still resonate, reminding us not only of the power of trauma, but also of the resilience of the human spirit in facing extraordinary circumstances. In the early afternoon of September 2, 2003, a man named Brian Wells entered a PNC bank in Erie, Pennsylvania. Little did he know, this day would become one of the most bizarre and perplexing cases in American criminal history. Brian was a pizza delivery driver, and the day had started like any other. However, it quickly spiraled into chaos, leading to an explosive finale that would captivate the nation. As Wells made his way into the bank, he was wearing what appeared to be a bomb collar around his neck. This device, held in place by straps, sparked immediate alarm and drama inside the bank. Witnesses reported that he was visibly distressed and seemed to be in a state of panic. He demanded money, providing the bank tellers with a note that detailed a bank robbery plot under the threat of this apparent explosive device. The note instructed the tellers to hand over money, but it also outlined a strange set of instructions that led many to believe that Wells was not in control of the situation. The tellers followed his commands, handing over around $0 in cash. However, The situation quickly escalated when Wells informed them that he had to leave with the money, hinting at a larger scheme. With the cash in hand, Wells fled from the bank, but the bizarre turn of events was only just beginning. As he escaped, Wells called 911, indicating that he had been taken captive and forced to rob the bank. He told the dispatcher that he was given a bomb collar and had been instructed to follow specific directions. Authorities arrived at the scene shortly thereafter, and the bizarre narrative unfolded on live radio. Tension grew as Wells drove around in his car, clearly anxious, while the police tried to piece together the details of the case. Time was of the essence. While Brian was on the phone with the dispatch, he mentioned that the collar would detonate if he didn't follow the orders given to him. As police worked to track his movements, they were in contact with him, desperately trying to keep him calm while attempting to understand the situation. Just moments before his eventual capture, Wells was surrounded by law enforcement, who attempted to keep him composed. However, despite their efforts, the bomb collar eventually detonated, resulting in a tragic and violent end. The explosion led investigators to delve deeper into the mystery. Authorities quickly began to connect the dots, and the story became even more complicated. Initial reports suggested that this was a robbery gone wrong, but the circumstances surrounding Brian's involvement raised several questions. Was he an innocent victim caught in a dangerous game, or was he a willing participant in a larger conspiracy? As investigators peeled back the layers of this strange case, they discovered a network of individuals and a maze of plans that had been in motion long before Brian Wells entered that bank. The ensuing investigation revealed an odd assortment of characters who were connected to past criminal activities, conspiracy theories, and a variety of motives that could have led to this tragic event. The plot thickened further as law enforcement began to interview individuals connected to Wells. They discovered that he had various acquaintances, some of whom had ties to criminal activities involving drugs and theft. Some of these individuals were even considered potential suspects in the planning of the robbery itself. Names like Kenneth Barnes and Marjorie Deal Armstrong began surfacing in connection with the case. Kenneth Barnes was known to have a reputation for being involved in illicit activities, and Marjorie Deal Armstrong was described as a woman with a long history of criminal behavior. The complexities of these individuals, combined with the background of Brian Wells, painted a picture of a larger scheme. Investigators started to consider whether Wells had willingly participated in the robbery under certain threats, or if he had indeed been an unsuspecting pawn in a dangerous game orchestrated by others. As more details emerged, detectives began to uncover a convoluted plot that involved not only cash, but also a twisted narrative of manipulation, potential betrayal, and untrustworthy associates. The idea was uncovered that the bomb collar may not have been a genuine explosive device, leading many to wonder if Wells was ever truly at risk, or if he had simply fallen deeper into a web spun by those around him. Throughout the investigation, the media heavily covered the unfolding story, turning it into a sensational spectacle that gripped the attention of the nation. The bizarre elements of the case, along with the tragic outcome, led to public fascination. People were captivated by the fact that an ordinary pizza delivery driver became the reluctant center of a deadly game, raising questions about crime, coercion, and the choices people make when survival is on the line. Eventually, the case would lead to trials and accusations, focusing on the individuals who were allegedly involved in the planning of the robbery. These court proceedings unveiled new layers of intrigue, including testimony from witnesses and confessions from suspects. The bizarre nature of the case only deepened as it progressed, turning from a simple bank robbery into a complex tale of greed, manipulation, and ultimate betrayal. In the end, the pizza bomber case tracked a path filled with fascinating twists and turns, marking its place in the annals of true crime history. It raised fundamental questions about trust, desperation, and the lengths some may go to when faced with extreme circumstances. The legacy of Brian Wells and this shocking incident remains a poignant reminder of how quickly life can spiral out of control and how complex human motives can lead to unforeseen conclusions. Jimmy Hoffa was a prominent figure in American labor history, best known for his leadership of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, one of the largest and most powerful labor unions in the United States. He was born on February 14, 1913 in Indiana, and became involved with labor organizations at an early age. Hoffa's career was marked by his ability to unite workers and negotiate significant labor contracts, but it was also filled with controversy, including accusations of corruption and connections to organized crime. Hoffa's rise to power began in the 1930s, when he organized a successful strike for local truck drivers in Detroit. His organizational skills and charisma contributed to his rapid ascent within the Teamsters. By the 1960s, Hoffa had become the president of the union, overseeing a vast network of affiliates and representing millions of workers. However, his tenure was not without challenges. Hoffa faced numerous legal battles and was convicted of jury tampering, attempted bribery, and fraud in 1964, which led to a prison sentence. He was released in 1971 after a lengthy legal battle, but was banned from union office until 1980. The story of Hoffa's disappearance begins on July 30, 1975, when he was last seen outside of a restaurant called the Maucus Red Fox in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. Hoffa had been trying to negotiate a return to power within the Teamsters, seeking to regain control of the union after his release from prison. He was set to meet with two notorious mobsters, Anthony Provenzano and Anthony Giacalone, both of whom had ties to organized crime. The details of that meeting have been the subject of speculation and intrigue for decades. Hoffa's family reported him missing when he did not return home that evening. The initial police investigation began, but it quickly grew complicated due to Hoffa's connections to the mafia and the potential dangers involved in his disappearance. Investigators explored multiple leads, interviewed numerous witnesses, and combed through various locations but found no trace of Hoffa. Theories about what happened to Hoffa abound. Some suggest that he was murdered by a mafia hit team who wanted to eliminate him as a threat to their operations. Others propose that he was in hiding, living under an assumed identity to escape his past. According to certain accounts, Hoffa may have been taken to a remote location and disposed of in a way that would ensure he would never be found. Tales of his body being buried in different locations, including a Detroit area landfill, have persisted over the years, attracting the attention of amateur sleuths and seasoned investigators alike. Despite the extensive investigations conducted by local law enforcement and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Hoffa's disappearance remains an open case. The FBI received thousands of tips, but none led to a viable conclusion. As the years went by, the mystery deepened, with new generations of investigators and true crime enthusiasts seeking to uncover the truth. A variety of documentaries, books, and films have been produced, exploring the case from multiple angles and providing insights into the world of organized crime and labor unions during Hoffa's reign. In 1982, 7 years after Hoffa vanished, the FBI conducted a search of a landfill in Michigan, driven by a tip suggesting Hoffa's remains could be buried there. Unfortunately, they found no evidence, and the case grew colder. In 2001, another search took place at a farm in Michigan, based on information from an alleged mob insider, but again, no evidence was found. The lack of closure surrounding Hoffa's fate has led to speculation and conspiracy theories that persist to this day. Some believe that powerful figures both within the Union and organized crime conspired to silence him permanently to protect their interests. Others argue that Hoffa's ambitions and determination to reclaim his position within the Teamsters ultimately led to his downfall. In popular culture, Jimmy Hoffa's legacy has been romanticized and dramatized, leading to portrayals in movies and television shows. His enigmatic disappearance continues to be a source of fascination, exploring themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the complexities of power dynamics within labor unions and organized crime networks. Many have sought to piece together the puzzle of Hoffa's disappearance, but the truth remains elusive. As time passes and the chances of uncovering new evidence dwindle, the story of Jimmy Hoffa serves as a haunting reminder of the dark underbelly of American labor history and the lengths to which individuals can go in pursuit of power and control. Though Hoffa was declared legally dead in 1982, the search for answers continues. His family, friends, and supporters have not given up hope of finding out what really happened to him. They continue to advocate for new investigations and to keep the memory of Hoffa alive. The intrigue surrounding his life and sudden disappearance has ensured that the legacy of Jimmy Hoffa remains a topic of discussion, with new theories emerging even as the years roll on. Thus, the story of Jimmy Hoffa is not just about a labor leader. It is about the intersection of power, corruption, and the human drive for possibility amidst complex circumstances. He emerges as a figure who symbolizes both the potential for workers' rights and the dark realities of organized labor. Whether Hoffa's secrets will ever be unearthed remains a compelling question. His impact on the labor movement and the ongoing enigma of his disappearance will likely continue to resonate for generations to come, ensuring that history remembers both the man and his mysterious fate. COINTELPRO, short for Counterintelligence Program, was a series of covert and often illegal activities conducted by the FBI to monitor, infiltrate, and disrupt domestic political organizations deemed subversive. Established in the late 1950s, the program initially targeted the Communist Party USA, but over time it expanded to include civil rights organizations, feminist groups, socialist organizations, and a variety of other political movements. The overarching goal of COINTELPRO was to undermine these groups' influence and diminish their ability to operate effectively. At its core, COINTELPRO represented a significant intersection of national security concerns and civil liberties. The program utilized a range of tactics, including surveillance, infiltration, disinformation campaigns, and even efforts to sow discord among members of the targeted organizations. The FBI believed that these groups posed a threat to American society, and their activities were justified in the name of national security. This mindset led to a culture within the agency where the ends were seen as justifying the means, often at the expense of individual rights and freedoms. One of the most notorious aspects of COINTELPRO was its targeting of civil rights leaders, most notably Martin Luther King Jr. The FBI engaged in extensive surveillance of King, tapping his phones and monitoring his activities. They even went so far as to attempt to discredit him through smear campaigns, including sending anonymous letters to him threatening to reveal personal information to damage his reputation. The agency's fear of King was rooted not only in his leadership in the civil rights movement, but also in his growing anti-war stance in the late 1960s, which further alarmed those in power. In addition to civil rights groups, COINTELPRO targeted feminist organizations and the peace movement during the Vietnam War. The FBI believed these movements were connected to broader leftist ideologies that sought to challenge the status quo. Groups like the Students for a Democratic Society and various anti-war protests were monitored closely, with the FBI often employing undercover agents to infiltrate these organizations. The tactics used in COINTELPRO were not only invasive but also devious. The FBI engaged in spreading false information to create divisions in organizations. For instance, they would anonymously send letters to members, claiming that others within the group were government informants or spies. This strategy of creating suspicion and fear among members crippled the effectiveness and unity of various movements. Another striking feature of COINTELPRO was its engagement in psychological operations. The FBI often sought to confuse and demoralize targets by promoting internal conflict and distrust. The agency would use forged documents, false publications, and other means to manipulate public perception and influence internal dynamics within organizations. As the 1970s progressed, evidence of COINTELPRO's excesses began to surface, leading to increased scrutiny and public outcry. Journalists and activists began to uncover documents revealing the extent of the program's reach and its disturbing methods. It became evident that COINTELPRO was operating outside the boundaries of acceptable law enforcement, prompting investigations by Congress and civil liberties groups. The revelations about COINTELPRO eventually led to significant reforms within the FBI and increased oversight of the agency's operations. In the wake of these scandals, the public's trust in government agencies was severely shaken. Many realized that the agencies tasked with protecting citizens had overstepped their bounds, operating in secrecy with little accountability. Despite the end of COINTELPRO, its legacy is still felt today. Concerns about government surveillance, civil liberties, and the balance between national security and individual rights continue to resonate in modern discussions about law enforcement practices. The lessons learned from COINTELPRO challenge us to consider how far we are willing to go in the name of security, and they remind us of the importance of protecting democratic principles, even in times of unrest or perceived threat. As society continues to grapple with issues of surveillance, political dissent, and civil liberties, the story of COINTELPRO serves as a cautionary tale. It reminds us of the potential for abuse in the pursuit of national security, and the vigilance required to safeguard democratic freedoms. The discussions around COINTELPRO are a testament to the enduring struggle between authority and dissent, a theme as relevant today as it was during the turbulent decades of the 1960s and 1970s. In summary, COINTELPRO was more than a mere intelligence program. It was a deeply controversial operation that utilized questionable tactics in the name of national security. By delving into the complexities and implications of COINTELPRO, we can better understand the delicate balance between the need for security and the protection of civil liberties, a balance that remains a pivotal issue in contemporary society. The story of the Manson family is one of the most infamous and chilling tales in American criminal history. It tells of a cult led by Charles Manson that orchestrated a series of horrific crimes in the late 1960s. This narrative is not just about the murders themselves, but also about the cultural, social, and psychological dynamics that allowed such events to unfold. Charles Manson was born on November 12, 1934, in Cincinnati, Ohio. His early life was marked by instability and delinquency. Manson spent much of his youth in and out of juvenile facilities. His early experiences fostered a deep-seated resentment towards society. As he grew older, Manson became fascinated with the counterculture movements of the 1960s, particularly the burgeoning hippie movement that advocated for peace and love, but often masked undercurrents of darkness and chaos. In the late 1960s, Manson began to attract a following, primarily young people who were searching for meaning and community. He established a commune in the San Fernando Valley of California, where he preached a doctrine that combined elements of mysticism, racism, and apocalyptic prediction. Manson claimed to be a prophet and convinced his followers that a coming race war would lead to societal collapse. He referred to this impending chaos as helter-skelter, a term he borrowed from the Beatles' song of the same name. Manson's charisma and manipulative prowess drew in several young individuals who were looking for connection and a sense of purpose. He exercised immense control over his followers, known as the Manson family. Many of these followers were impressionable young people, often disillusioned by societal norms. Manson exploited their vulnerabilities, presenting himself as a father figure and spiritual leader. He guided their thoughts, encouraging them to break free from conventional societal constraints, but ultimately leading them down a darker path. The turning point in Manson's story occurred in 1969. On the night of August 8th, a group of Manson's followers, under his direction, invaded the home of actress Sharon Tate and her friends in Los Angeles. Sharon was 8 months pregnant at the time. The attackers brutally murdered Tate and 4 others: Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, Wojciech Frykowski, and Stephen Parent. The scene was horrific and symbolic of the chaotic violence Manson had been advocating. The very next night, Manson ordered another brutal assault. This time, the targets were Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, a couple who were murdered in their home while they slept. The killings of Tate and the LaBianca couple sent shockwaves through America. It shattered the illusion of peace and love that had defined the counterculture movement. The murders were not only shocking because of their brutality, but also because they seemingly marked a shift from the ideals of the 1960s into an era of fear and distrust. What is particularly disturbing about these crimes is the level of control Manson had over his followers. Many of them were not simply participants. They were willing accomplices, acting on Manson's orders without question. This phenomenon raises complex questions about free will, influence, and the capacity for evil in individuals who might otherwise be considered normal. The psychology of coercion, manipulation, and loyalty becomes essential to understanding how the Manson family operated. After the murders, the Manson family continued to live in isolation for a period. It wasn't until police started connecting the dots between different investigations that Manson and several of his followers were arrested in late 1969. The trial that followed was highly publicized and turned into a media circus. Manson's demeanor in court only further sensationalized the story. He often smiled and made bizarre comments, embracing the attention he received from the public and media. During the trial, the prosecution painted Manson as the mastermind behind the murders, despite his absence at the crime scenes. The jury ultimately found Manson and several of his followers guilty of first-degree murder. Manson was sentenced to death, but his sentence was later commuted to life in prison when California abolished the death penalty in 1972. The legacy of the Manson family continues to haunt American culture. Their crimes shocked the nation and changed how law enforcement and society viewed cults and manipulative leaders. The story stands as a stark reminder of the potential for darkness in human nature, as well as the vulnerabilities that can lead individuals to follow a charismatic leader down a treacherous path. Books, movies, and documentaries have explored the events surrounding Manson and his followers. These explorations often focus on the social and cultural context of the late 1960s, examining how a society desperate for change could give rise to such an aberration. In popular discourse, the Manson family often represents a broader societal fear, the loss of innocent ideals to malevolent forces. The phrase helter-skelter has transcended its origin, becoming synonymous with chaos, violence, and the loss of innocence. As the generations have passed, the story remains relevant. It serves as a cautionary tale about the power of influence, the dynamics of control, and the fragility of human morality. Investigations into the Manson family also highlight the importance of understanding the psychological impact of cult dynamics. Researchers and psychologists have sought to explore the motivations, social pressures, and psychological manipulations that lead individuals to join such groups. The story of the Manson family continues to offer insights into how ordinary people can be drawn into extraordinary acts of violence and the profound implications of ideological extremism. The Manson family crimes remain a pivotal moment in not only American criminal history, but also in the collective consciousness of society. They compel us to examine the ways in which fear, desperation, and the longing for meaning can intersect with the darker aspects of human nature. As we reflect on this story, it is essential to consider the lessons learned from the past, ensuring that history does not repeat itself, and that the allure of charismatic figures is met with a critical eye and a vigilant spirit. The Manson family serves as a chilling reminder of the complexities of influence, the vulnerabilities of the human psyche, and the dark potential that can linger beneath the surface of a seemingly innocent quest for community and belonging. In the summer of 1996, the city of Atlanta was buzzing with energy and excitement as it prepared to host the Centennial Olympic Games. Athletes and spectators from around the world gathered to celebrate the spirit of the Olympics, but amid the festivities, a dark cloud loomed over the event. On July 27th, during a concert in Centennial Olympic Park, a horrific explosion shattered the celebratory atmosphere, resulting in devastating injuries and ultimately loss of life. The investigation into this bombing would not only reveal the complexities of terrorism, but also expose the dangers of media sensationalism and the rush to judgment that can come with high-profile cases. Richard Jewell, a security guard working at the Olympic Park, quickly became a central figure in the narrative surrounding the bombing. Jewell had indeed been a hero that day. He spotted a suspicious backpack, alerted law enforcement, and helped evacuate the area, potentially saving many lives. However, his life took a dramatic turn when he was identified as a suspect by the media. This was a classic case of jumping to conclusions, fueled by the pressures of a 24-hour news cycle and the public's desire for a quick resolution to a terrifying act. The bombing resulted in the death of 2 individuals and injured over 100 more. Initially, chaos ensued, and for a brief period, the audience was reminded of the fragility of safety in public spaces. Richard Jewell, in his active role as a diligent guardian of safety, became an unlikely suspect when the FBI began to scrutinize him due to his profile. The portrayal of Jewell by the media was often sensational, manipulating public perception and turning a hero into a villain overnight. Jewell bore the brunt of intense media scrutiny. News outlets began to paint him as the perfect suspect. He fit the profile of a, quote, lone bomber, which is often a preconceived notion that many media outlets and law enforcement agencies hold. He was a white male with a history of wanting to be in law enforcement, which fed into the narrative that an ordinary man could turn extraordinary events into tragic outcomes. This profile was dangerous and led to a frenzied inquiry into Jewell's personal life. His past was investigated with vigor, and soon every detail of his life became fodder for the tabloids. In addition to providing a skewed portrayal of Jewell, the media frenzy created an environment where the general public was quick to form opinions. Many people who had previously admired him for his bravery began to interrogate his character and motives. Discussions of guilt framed around his actions became rampant, and the idea that someone who tried to help could actually be the perpetrator began to take root. It was a stunning example of how quickly public perception can shift from praise to suspicion. The FBI's investigation, along with media speculation, deepened Richard Jewell's distress. His life, once filled with hopes of becoming a law enforcement officer, spiraled into a nightmare as he faced the very institution that he respected and aspired to join. The enormous pressure of being scapegoated for a crime he did not commit took a toll on him emotionally and mentally. During this harrowing period, Jewell often found himself trying to defend his character, hoping the truth would surface. Over time, the real perpetrator of the bombing was identified, Eric Robert Rudolph, who would remain a fugitive for years. His motivations were tied to a radical ideology and a series of other violent crimes which eventually led to his capture. When Rudolph was finally apprehended, it served as a powerful reminder of how misplaced assumptions could have devastating consequences, not only for victims like those affected by the bombing, but also for innocents whose lives were turned upside down. Richard Jewell's exoneration was a slow, painful process. The events that transpired had lasting effects on him, and while he was eventually cleared of any wrongdoing, the implications of public judgment lingered. His story highlighted serious flaws in how investigations could be conducted. The rush to find someone to blame can overshadow the truth, leading to mischaracterizations and tarnished reputations. The case of Richard Jewell also sparked discussions regarding media responsibility. It emphasized how vital it is for journalists to verify their sources and consider the potential ramifications of their reporting. Responsible journalism plays a critical role in shaping public opinion and holding authority accountable. The aftermath of the Olympic bombing raised significant questions about the ethics of reporting, especially in cases involving criminal investigations. In the years following the bombing and Jewell's exoneration, he found solace in the supportive communities that emerged around him. Many who understood the truth rallied to his side, offering compassionate empathy to counteract the cold scrutiny he had endured. Richard Jewell became a symbol of the fight against the dangers of hasty conclusions and the power dynamics inherent in media narratives. He went on to have a life that sought to redirect focus onto making impactful changes. Jewell became an advocate for privacy rights and worked tirelessly to prevent other innocent people from undergoing similar experiences. He sought to educate the public on the importance of due process and how adverse public opinion can deeply influence lives, often beyond repair. The legacy of Richard Jewell and the events surrounding the Centennial Olympic Park bombing serve as a cautionary tale. It reminds us to approach similar narratives with critical thinking and empathy. While a tragic incident created chaos and fear, it was also an opportunity for learning, forcing us to reflect on the ethics of journalism, the burden of proof, and the importance of protecting individual rights. In commemoration of the events of that day, Centennial Olympic Park has since become a symbol of resilience and unity, serving as a reminder of the strength of community in the face of adversity. The park stands not only as the venue of an unforgettable and traumatic event, but also as a testament to the spirit of recovery and compassion that followed. Richard Jewell passed away in 2007, but his story continues to resonate, highlighting our need to question first impressions and remain vigilant against unfounded accusations. The narrative of his life and experiences remains relevant today, reminding us to celebrate feats of bravery without jumping to unwanted conclusions, and that everyone deserves a chance to tell their truth. The legacy is a testament to finding peace and understanding, even amidst chaos. The Jonestown Massacre is one of the most tragic and bewildering events in modern history. On November 18, 1978, over 900 members of the People's Temple, led by Jim Jones, died in a mass suicide murder in Jonestown, Guyana. This shocking event raised a multitude of questions and led to an extensive investigation, primarily conducted by the FBI, as they sought to understand the circumstances surrounding the tragedy and how a religious cult could result in such devastating loss of life. The background to this catastrophe is deeply rooted in the activities of the People's Temple and its founder, Jim Jones. Established in the 1950s in Indiana, the People's Temple initially aimed to promote social justice, equality, and a sense of community. However, as time progressed, Jones became increasingly erratic and controlling, leading his followers to believe that the outside world was hostile towards them. This paranoia manifested in the establishment of Jonestown in Guyana, a supposed utopia free from the corruption of American life. When investigative journalists began to express concerns about the activities in Jonestown and the well-being of its residents, particularly after politician Leo Ryan's visit, tensions escalated. Ryan was investigating allegations of abuse and conditions within the community. Tragically, during this visit, he, along with several others, was ambushed and killed by temple members upon trying to leave with defectors. This event marked a turning point, triggering a sense of urgency and concern that culminated in the catastrophic events of November 18th. In the aftermath, the FBI was called into action to investigate the scene and uncover the details of what transpired in Jonestown. The sheer scale of death and the circumstances surrounding it were unlike anything the agency had encountered before. On the ground in Guyana, they faced several challenges. First and foremost, the logistical difficulty of accessing the remote site where the massacre occurred was a significant obstacle. The FBI worked alongside local authorities to secure the area and begin the process of recovering and identifying the bodies. As part of their investigation, the FBI collected evidence, interviewed survivors, and analyzed records related to the People's Temple. They sought to piece together not only the timeline of events leading up to the mass death, but also the extent of the psychological manipulation exerted by Jim Jones over his followers. The investigation revealed a systematic approach Jones used to maintain control over his congregation, including the use of drugs, coercive persuasion, and a pervasive atmosphere of fear. Moreover, the FBI examined the phenomenon of cult dynamics, considering how individuals could be drawn into and remain within such destructive organizations. Testimonies from former members highlighted the lengths to which Jones went to suppress dissent and maintain an unwavering allegiance from his followers. The investigation illuminated the extreme isolation members felt, both physically in the jungle and psychologically, as the outside world was constantly portrayed as dangerous and hostile. The culmination of the FBI's investigation was not solely to bring justice to the tragic event, but also to provide insight into the psychological and sociological factors that contributed to the Jonestown incident. Their findings have led to a deeper understanding of how cults operate, the danger posed by charismatic leaders, and the vulnerability of individuals seeking belonging and purpose. The Jonestown tragedy also sparked significant changes in the way authorities and mental health professionals approached cases involving cults and high-control groups. The investigation underscored the necessity for greater awareness and readiness to respond to similar scenarios in the future. The Jonestown Massacre serves as a grim reminder of the potential for human beings to manipulate others and the lengths to which individuals may go in the name of belief. The FBI's thorough investigation helped to shed light on these complex issues and pave the way for ongoing discussions about religious freedom, personal autonomy, and the responsibilities of communities and governments to protect vulnerable populations. In conclusion, the Jonestown Massacre remains a harrowing chapter in history, but the comprehensive investigation by the FBI provided a platform for understanding the depths of human psychology and the risks associated with extreme ideologies. It is a cautionary tale that compels reflection on the importance of critical thinking, vigilance against manipulation, and compassion for those who may find themselves ensnared in similarly dangerous circumstances. Through careful analysis and continued discourse, it is hoped that lessons learned from Jonestown can assist in preventing such tragedies in the future, ensuring that individuals are empowered to seek healthy, supportive communities rather than succumbing to destructive forces. In 1982, a series of shocking incidents unfolded in the United States, leading to one of the most infamous unsolved criminal cases in American history. It involved the tampering of Tylenol capsules, a common over-the-counter pain relief medication, resulting in several tragic deaths. This case not only sent shockwaves through the nation, but also led to significant changes in product safety regulations. The events began in the Chicago area in late September 1982, when several people were taken to the hospital after consuming Tylenol. On September 30th, Mary Kellerman, a 12-year-old girl, was the first victim. She suffered from a sore throat and took a Tylenol capsule. Sadly, she died later that day. 2 hours after Mary's death, another victim, Adam Janis, a 27-year-old man, took Tylenol for a headache. Shortly thereafter, he collapsed and died as well. In a devastating turn of events, two of his siblings, who used the same Tylenol bottle to relieve their own symptoms, also fell ill and died shortly after. Initially, these cases seemed unrelated in the eyes of the medical community. However, as emergency responders and law enforcement began to investigate, they uncovered a disturbing link. All three victims had consumed Tylenol capsules from the same batch. This revelation raised alarm bells, leading investigators to suspect that the capsules had been poisoned. The poison was later identified as cyanide, a deadly substance. This shocking realization set off a widespread panic among the general public. In response, the Johnson & Johnson Company, the manufacturer of Tylenol, quickly reacted to protect consumers. They recalled approximately 31 million bottles of Tylenol from store shelves, a move that cost them over $100 million. This was one of the largest product recalls in history, reflecting the seriousness of the situation. As the investigation deepened, law enforcement officials faced many challenges. They sought leads in a rapidly changing environment, as the concept of product tampering was not widespread at the time. Despite extensive investigations, which included interviews with family and friends of the victims and analysis of the tampering methods, no definitive suspect emerged. This lack of leads only intensified the fear within the community and encouraged a media frenzy. Authorities also enlisted the help of forensic scientists to analyze the poison found in the capsules and hoped to identify a unique chemical signature that could lead to a suspect. Meanwhile, the fear of consuming over-the-counter medications gripped the public, resulting in a massive decline in Tylenol sales. To restore trust, Johnson & Johnson developed tamper-proof packaging, something that has since become the standard in the pharmaceutical and consumer goods industries. In a twist that captivated the nation, several months later, a man named James Lewis contacted Johnson & Johnson, demanding a ransom of $1 million to stop the poisoning. Although he had no involvement in the case, police arrested him and investigated his past. Lewis was ultimately convicted of unrelated charges and sentenced to time in prison. However, his connection to the Tylenol murders was never definitively established. The case continued to surface in the media for years, drawing the interests of amateur sleuths and professional investigators alike. In 1986, a woman named Stella Nichol was arrested for poisoning her husband and attempting to frame the Tylenol murders as a cover for her crime. Nichol had tampered with a Tylenol bottle, lacing it with cyanide, in an effort to claim a life insurance policy. Ultimately, her case reinforced the public's concerns surrounding Tylenol and product tampering. For decades, various theories and suspects have been proposed regarding the Tylenol murders. Conspiracy theorists emerged, speculating that the poisonings were part of a larger plot or that it was the work of a disgruntled employee or competitor. Investigators also considered that the poisonings could be the work of a serial killer seeking notoriety or simply someone with a personal vendetta. Despite new leads and re-examinations of evidence with advancements in forensic science, the identity of the poisoner remains shrouded in mystery. Part of the enduring intrigue of this case lies in the emotional weight of the victim's loss and the fear that gripped the public. It serves as a reminder of the vulnerability people feel when consuming everyday products. The Tylenol murders affected countless lives and instilled a sense of caution regarding the safety of over-the-counter medications. Today, the Tylenol murders are often referenced in discussions about product safety, public health, and criminal investigation. They serve as a case study for law enforcement and the pharmaceutical industry regarding the importance of consumer protection and the need for transparent communication with the public during crises. In the years since the murders, various advancements in packaging and product security have been introduced, including safety seals and tamper-evident packaging, to prevent similar tragedies from occurring. The lessons learned from this case have shaped regulations that govern the pharmaceutical industry to this day, ensuring that consumer safety is a paramount concern. As time marches on, the case remains officially unsolved. The public still wonders who was responsible for such heinous acts and why they felt compelled to commit them. And while many individuals and families were affected by the tragedy, their stories and the broader implications for society serve as an enduring reminder of the importance of vigilance in our everyday lives. The mystery surrounding the Tylenol murders continues to entice true crime enthusiasts and investigative minds. As technology advances and new methods emerge, there remains a glimmer of hope that one day conclusive evidence might come to light, offering answers to the families who were left to grapple with unfulfilled grief and unanswered questions. In the tapestry of American criminal history, the Tylenol murders stand out as a chilling testament to the unpredictable nature of crime and the impact it can have on individuals and communities. This case not only sought justice for the victims, but also brought much-needed reform to consumer safety practices, ensuring that the tragedies of the past do not repeat themselves in the future. As the world continues to evolve, so too do the memories of those lost to the turmoil of 1982. Their names may fade from memory, but the stories, the fear, and the lessons learned live on, reminding us all of the fragility of life and the profound responsibility that comes with ensuring the safety of the products we choose to consume. In an unexpected turn of events in 1948, the Fort Lauderdale Stockade became the stage for one of the most audacious prison breaks in Florida history. The Stockade, located in a densely wooded area in South Florida, housed a variety of inmates, many of whom were serving relatively short sentences for minor offenses. Yet, on that fateful day in January, a group of 8 inmates decided that their time behind bars had come to an end. This remarkable story of desperation, ingenuity, and determination would soon captivate the attention of law enforcement and the public alike. As the sun began to set over the stockade, the inmates orchestrated a daring escape plan. It was a carefully crafted operation that involved meticulous preparation over several weeks. The inmates knew the layout of the stockade well, having taken note of the guards' routines and the weaknesses in the facility's security. With this knowledge, they gathered together and made their bold move, utilizing tools they had fashioned from everyday items available to them within the confines of the stockade. The escape unfolded under the cover of darkness. As the clock struck the midnight hour, The group of 8 stealthily made their way to the perimeter fence. They had worked out a plan to create a diversion, drawing the attention of the guards while another team of inmates would slip through the fence unnoticed. It was a risky maneuver, but they were fueled by a fierce desire for freedom. Once they successfully breached the fence, they quickly scattered into the surrounding woods. The exhilaration of freedom surged through their veins as they ran deeper into the wilderness, away from the prison walls that had confined them. However, their flight was not without its challenges. The South Florida swamps were thick and unforgiving, presenting a daunting landscape filled with obstacles. Nonetheless, they pressed on, each man navigating the treacherous terrain in search of a safe haven. As news of the escape spread, local law enforcement was alerted, and a massive manhunt was launched. The FBI became involved, given the brazen nature of the escape and the potential threat the escapees could pose to the public. Authorities quickly mobilized, deploying helicopters and patrol cars in an intense search operation. Posters were printed, warning citizens about the escapees, and residents were informed to remain vigilant. While the escapees raced through the dense underbrush, they soon realized that their freedom was precarious. With every passing hour, the likelihood of capture loomed larger. They split into smaller groups to increase their chances of evading law enforcement. Some made their way towards populated areas, hoping to find hiding spots among the general public, while others sought refuge in remote cabins and the vast swamplands that were difficult for the authorities to navigate. As their days on the run stretched on, the gravity of their decisions began to weigh heavily on them. The connections they had with one another grew deeper in the face of adversity. They shared stories, fears, and hopes as they huddled together for warmth at night. Bonds were forged in unforeseen circumstances, and they often recalled the lives they had left behind. These men were no ordinary criminals. They were dreamers who believed in a life beyond the confines of their past mistakes. With each passing day, the FBI became increasingly determined to apprehend the escapees. Agents worked tirelessly, gathering tips from the community and tracking down leads. As the manhunt intensified, the escapees found their options dwindling. The once wild and exhilarating sense of freedom was slowly morphing into anxiety and paranoia. Every rustle in the bushes caused their hearts to race, and every distant sound prompted them to seek further cover. A few days into their flight, the escapees began to fracture. One group caught wind of a safe house that was rumored to be sympathetic to their plight. They made their way there, cautiously navigating through neighborhoods in the hopes of blending in. Meanwhile, the other group, led by a more experienced escapee, chose to remain in the wilderness and rely on their survival skills. The dynamics within the group shifted, as survival instincts kicked in, and alliances were tested. As the story of the escape spread across newspapers and radio waves, public interest grew. People were fascinated by the notion of freedom seekers attempting to break away from the clutches of the law. Concerns over the escapees' potential threats sparked debates around crime, punishment, and rehabilitation, prompting discussions in the local community. This escape had become more than just a manhunt. It had evolved into a cultural narrative, captivating the hearts and minds of a nation. The FBI, spurred on by public interest and urgency, implemented various strategies to apprehend the remaining escapees. Federal agents sought assistance from local law enforcement, implementing roadblocks and checkpoints across the region to capture anyone fitting the escapees' descriptions. Pressure mounted as time went on, and the possibility of escape began to slip away from the men. Desperation led one of the escapees to make a bold move that would ultimately change the course of their flight. Feeling the walls closing in, he decided to attempt to steal a vehicle. This act proved to be fateful, as the attempt quickly went awry, attracting attention from law enforcement. Within moments, the authorities were closing in. It was a scene filled with tension and urgency, as the remaining men were now on a collision course with the reality they had sought to escape. In the days that followed, agents finally caught up to a few of the escapees. Those who had found refuge in the cabin of a sympathetic family were soon apprehended, and it was a poignant reminder of the complex nature of their situation. Stripped of their freedom, they were confronted with the consequences of their choices. The aftermath of the Fort Lauderdale Stockade escape sent ripples through the community and the justice system. The capture of the escapees reignited discussions about prison conditions, rehabilitation, and the lengths individuals will go to claim their freedom. While the escape had ultimately ended in recapture, the story of their audacious bid for liberty lived on in folklore, capturing the imagination of future generations. Despite their missteps and actions taken while on the run, The escapees' journey highlighted the human spirit's resilience and the quest for freedom. These men were not just statistics, but rather individuals grappling with their circumstances. While they faced the consequences of their actions, their stories spoke to the broader narratives of hope, longing, and the never-ending search for a life without walls. It captured the essence of what it means to yearn for something greater and the lengths one will go to attain it, resonating through time as a testament to human nature's unyielding pursuit of freedom. Operation Ill Wind was a significant scandal in the United States that brought to light a troubling web of corruption involving defense contracting and government officials during the 1980s. The story unfolds against the backdrop of the Cold War, a period marked by intense military competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. At the heart of Operation Ill Wind was a series of unethical practices involving defense contractors who were supposed to provide essential equipment and services to the U.S. military. The investigation into these practices revealed that some defense contractors were engaging in fraudulent activities, including kickbacks and bribery, to secure lucrative contracts and inflate prices for military projects. This not only compromised the integrity of governmental operations, but also posed risks to national security. The scandal's unearthing began in the mid-1980s when the U.S. Air Force started to notice irregularities in bidding processes and the financial dealings of various defense contractors. Whistleblowers from within the industry began to step forward, sharing their concerns about a culture of corruption that had become pervasive among some contractors. These individuals pointed to situations where contractors would provide luxury items, expensive gifts, and monetary incentives to government officials in exchange for favorable treatment during the contract awarding process. As investigations intensified, federal agents uncovered a staggering number of cases where contracts had been awarded based not on merit, but rather on misrepresentation and unethical behavior. The findings led to multiple arrests and indictments as the breadth of corruption began to surface. High-ranking officials within the military and government contracting agencies were implicated, revealing a troubling pattern of collusion and dishonesty that undermined public trust. One of the striking aspects of Operation Ill Wind was its impact on the U.S. defense community. The scandal forced the government to reevaluate its procurement policies and practices. This led to increased scrutiny over government contracts and an emphasis on upholding accountability within defense spending. The ramifications of the scandal were felt for years, prompting Congress to enact reforms aimed at improving oversight of defense contracts. Media coverage of the operation played a crucial role in bringing attention to the issue. Investigative journalists took the initiative to dig deeper into the allegations, revealing the complexities of the defense contracting landscape. They highlighted specific cases where government officials had accepted bribes and how these actions ultimately led to overpriced military contracts. The stories resonated with the public and served to galvanize calls for reform. The effects of Operation Ill Wind were not limited to immediate legal consequences. It sparked a broader conversation about ethics in government and the need for transparency in the procurement process. Citizens began to demand that those in positions of authority be held accountable for their actions, which served to foster a greater awareness of the importance of ethical governance. In additional investigations that stemmed from Operation Ill Wind, law enforcement agencies began to uncover more instances of misconduct beyond the original scope of the scandal. This highlighted the need for ongoing vigilance against corruption within public and private sectors. Employers in defense contracting were urged to adopt stricter codes of conduct and were made aware of the crucial importance of establishing a culture of integrity and compliance. The scandal also led to the establishment of more robust internal systems within contracting companies. Corporations in the defense sector started to develop ethics training programs for their employees, focusing on the importance of compliance with federal laws and the significance of reporting unethical behavior. The hope was to cultivate an environment where wrongdoing could be identified and addressed before it escalated into something harmful. As a part of the legacy of Operation Ill Wind, numerous convictions were secured against individuals involved in the scandal. The legal repercussions served as a warning to others who might contemplate similar paths of dishonesty. In a time when military spending was already a contentious topic, the revelations of corruption provided even more impetus for reform within the defense contracting framework. In addition to legislative changes, Operation Ill Wind brought about a cultural shift within the defense contracting industry. There was a newfound emphasis on ethics, accountability, and transparency, leading to improved practices in how contracts were awarded and executed. This transformation was essential in restoring public faith in a sector that had been marred by scandal and mistrust. As we look back on the implications of Operation Ill Wind, it is clear that corruption in defense contracting has far-reaching effects that extend beyond financial mismanagement. This scandal serves as a reminder of the critical need for sustained ethical vigilance and the responsibilities that come with public service. The lessons learned from this chapter in history underscore the importance of accountability in preserving the integrity of government operations and ensuring that public trust is maintained. Ultimately, Operation Ill Wind remains a pivotal moment in the history of the U.S. defense industry. The investigation and its aftermath influenced not only policy and legislative changes, but also a cultural shift towards valuing transparency and ethics in government dealings. In the years following, the narrative around defense contracting has continued to evolve, highlighting the ongoing importance of ethics in maintaining a system of checks and balances that safeguards against mismanagement and corruption. As society reflects on the fallout of Operation Ill Wind, it serves as a powerful reminder that vigilance in governance is crucial. The courage of those who step forward to expose wrongdoing, alongside the diligent work of investigators and journalists, exemplifies the impactful role individuals can play in upholding the standards necessary for a functioning democracy. The lessons learned continue to resonate today, encouraging ongoing conversations about the need for integrity within government and the significance of accountability in all sectors. The turn of the millennium brought with it excitement, anticipation, and a mix of hope and anxiety across the globe. People were eager to welcome the year 2000, celebrating milestone events with family and friends, engaging in massive parties, and participating in various festivities. However, amidst this jubilant atmosphere, there was a looming concern regarding security, particularly in relation to potential threats. One of the most notable incidents during this time was the Millennium Bomber plot, which was an attempted terrorist attack that the FBI successfully thwarted. The story of the Millennium Bomber offers a glimpse into the challenges and triumphs of law enforcement agencies working to prevent acts of violence and ensure public safety during times of celebration. In the late 1990s, the FBI began to pay closer attention to the potential for terrorist threats as the millennium approached. The agency was not only focused on imminent threats, but was also gathering intelligence on various groups that may be dissatisfied with the state of affairs in the world. The emergence of extremist groups and the evolving tactics of terrorists led to increased vigilance and proactive strategies. In early 1999, law enforcement authorities in the United States became aware of a concerning trend: potential plots that could disrupt celebrations and inflict harm on large gatherings. It was during this time that the case of the Millennium Bomber began to take shape. This individual, Ahmed Raisam, was attempting to carry out a major attack on New Year's Eve 1999, targeting the United States, particularly Los Angeles. Raisam, an Algerian national, had been planning an attack involving explosives that he intended to detonate in the crowded areas of Los Angeles. His goal was to inflict significant damage and casualties during a time when thousands of people would be celebrating the arrival of the new year. What unfolded next would showcase the effectiveness of intelligence gathering and collaborative efforts among various law enforcement entities. The FBI's efforts were aided by a combination of international cooperation and extensive surveillance. Information about Raisam's activities was shared with the U.S. from Canadian authorities, who had been monitoring his movements. This collaboration was key. Law enforcement agencies recognized that the threat could transcend borders and that working together was essential in preventing danger. On December 14, 1999, Raisam was stopped by customs officials at the U.S.-Canada border as he attempted to enter the United States. Initially appearing nervous, he was subjected to a search of his vehicle, which led to the discovery of explosive materials, including over 100 pounds of a powerful explosive known as dynamite. The customs officials had stumbled upon a plot that could have resulted in immense devastation. The discovery of the explosives triggered an immediate response from the FBI and other agencies who were detailed to manage the situation. Raisam was arrested and subsequently interrogated, leading to valuable insights about his intentions and connections to terrorist networks. His confession provided further details about the planned attack, including specific targets and methods. Raisam's thwarted plot was not just an isolated incident. It sparked a series of investigations that illuminated the broader landscape of terrorism threats in the United States, especially as the nation grappled with the possibility of future attacks. The case of the Millennium Bomber became a pivotal moment, highlighting the importance of vigilance, cooperation, and perseverance within the realm of national security. In the months following Reesum's arrest, the FBI's investigations continued, revealing plans and discussions among various groups focused on instigating violence during the Millennium celebrations. These revelations were alarming, leading to heightened security measures across the country. Celebrations that usually brought joy were now fortified with a significant police presence and security checks, as officials focused on safety for their communities. The impact of the Millennium Bomber case extended beyond mere prevention. It also emphasized advancing counterterrorism strategies. The successful disruption of such a plot led to a reassessment of how intelligence was shared and acted upon. The cooperation that was formed among different agencies, both domestically and internationally, illustrated the necessity of collaborative approaches to combating threats. In the aftermath of the Millennium Bomber incident, the United States shifted its focus toward enhancing security protocols and ensuring that law enforcement agencies remained in lockstep with one another. Through training, technology, and improved communication, the intention was to create a framework that could effectively respond to and neutralize threats as they arose. The story of the Millennium Bomber is a testament to resilience and vigilance during a particularly noteworthy moment in time. As the world transitioned into the new millennium, this case served as a reminder that security is a continuous effort requiring vigilance, cooperation, and proactive measures to protect citizens during public gatherings and celebrations. Reflecting on the events surrounding the Millennium Bomber plot allows us to appreciate the complexities of maintaining safety in a world that is perpetually evolving. With new threats emerging, the lessons learned from this scenario continue to inform and shape policies aimed at safeguarding communities. The preparation for large-scale events has since become more nuanced, with authorities adopting a comprehensive approach to security that focuses on prevention and community engagement. As we look back at the Millennium celebrations and the challenges faced during that time, it is essential to recognize the commitment of law enforcement officials and their partners in the quest for a secure environment for everyone. The Millennium Bomber incident stands not only as a cautionary tale, but also as a story of success, showcasing how collaboration and quick action can thwart even the most daunting of plans. In conclusion, the narrative of the Millennium Bomber and the successful intervention by the FBI is emblematic of a larger fight against extremism and the importance of foresight, collaboration, and determination. Those who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, coupled with international partnerships, remind us of the resilience within law enforcement. This proactive stance continues to influence modern-day security measures as we embrace the future while respecting the lessons of the past. As we remember the celebrations that welcome the year 2000, we also honor the efforts made to protect those joyous moments and the collective commitment to ensuring a safe environment for all. The story of Eric Rudolph is a complex tale of crime, investigation, and eventual capture that took place over several years, touching on significant societal issues. Rudolph was responsible for a series of bombings, most notably the bombing at the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. This act of terrorism, which occurred during a joyous celebration of athleticism and international spirit, left 2 people dead and over 100 others injured. It's crucial to delve into this story to understand how one individual's actions transformed lives, communities, and even security policies across the United States. Rudolph's journey into infamy began in the late 1990s and can be traced back to his early life. Born in 1967 in Merritt Island, Florida, he was raised in a military family. After dropping out of high school, Rudolph became increasingly involved in extremist views, particularly those surrounding anti-abortion sentiments and other radical ideologies. These views were pivotal in shaping the rationale behind his actions. In 1996, instead of celebrating the Olympic Games, the scene turned to chaos when a bomb exploded in Centennial Olympic Park. The placement of the bomb was cold and calculated, set up with the intent to draw maximum attention. This incident not only shocked the nation, but also raised questions about security and the lengths to which an individual would go to express their beliefs. As the dust settled, investigators found themselves faced with the daunting task of piecing together evidence from a chaotic crime scene. The ensuing hunt for Rudolph was intense and multifaceted. Law enforcement agencies launched a thorough investigation, drawing national attention. The FBI quickly labeled him a prime suspect, and a massive manhunt ensued. The challenge was not only finding a suspect who had vanished, but also ensuring the continued safety of citizens and tourists alike. With each passing day without leads, pressure mounted on investigative units to unravel the mystery. One of the most striking elements of this case was the behavior of the media. Coverage of the Olympic Park bombing was fierce and relentless, as reporters sought to understand who would commit such an act. The case became a media spectacle, with updates shared around the clock. The public's desire to know more about Rudolph intensified and led to widespread discussions about motivation, mental health, and domestic terrorism. Rudolph's evasion of law enforcement was remarkable. Amid growing scrutiny, he managed to slip under the radar, living off the grid in the remote wilderness of North Carolina. He was adept at avoiding detection, using his survival skills honed from years in the outdoors. His ability to blend into remote areas illustrates the lengths to which he was willing to go to evade capture. For years he remained elusive, and as a result the public's curiosity and fear grew. Meanwhile, investigators continued to build their case against him. They pieced together information from various bombers and a wealth of forensic evidence from similar attacks that shared characteristics with the Olympic bombing. This methodical approach eventually led the FBI to link Rudolph to bombings at abortion clinics, another part of his disturbing pattern of violence. These attacks compounded the urgency to apprehend him, as law enforcement feared he might strike again. The culmination of the investigation came in 2003. During this time, Rudolph had transitioned to a life of relative quiet in the mountains, surviving through hunting and foraging. His overconfidence and familiarity with the territory ultimately led to a critical mistake. He was discovered by a police officer while rummaging through a dumpster behind a grocery store in Murphy, North Carolina. The officer, aware of the ongoing manhunt, recognized him from a wanted poster. The arrest of Eric Rudolph marked the beginning of a new chapter in this long and arduous saga. His capture not only brought closure to many victims and their families, but also opened discussions on broader societal issues, such as terrorism, extremism, and how society addresses these threats. Once apprehended, Rudolph faced numerous charges for his actions, leading to high-profile court proceedings. His trials exposed the motivations behind his bombings and the radical ideologies that fueled his actions, offering insights into the mindset of individuals who turned to violence as a form of protest. The courtroom became a stage for discussing the implications of extremist beliefs and the societal responsibility to combat them. Ultimately, Rudolph pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty and was sentenced to multiple life terms without the possibility of parole. His story serves as a chilling reminder of the impact that one individual can have on countless lives and the resilience of communities in the face of terror. In the aftermath of his capture, discussions surrounding security, both at major public events and in daily life, evolved significantly. The legacy of the Olympic Park bombing recalibrated how events are organized, how security forces operate, and how the public perceives safety during large gatherings. The search for Eric Rudolph is more than just a story of pursuit. It is a narrative that forces society to confront uncomfortable truths. It highlights the vulnerability we all face in a world where ideologies can lead to such drastic actions and the ongoing challenge of preventing similar acts in the future. As we reflect on the events surrounding Eric Rudolph, we are reminded of the importance of vigilance, the duty to engage in dialogue about violence and its motivations, and the need for community solidarity against divisive ideologies. His capture was not just a victory for law enforcement, but a crucial step in healing for those affected by violence and fear. Karen Silkwood was an American labor union activist and whistleblower whose life was marked by a courageous stand against unsafe practices in the nuclear industry. Born on February 19, 1946, in Longview, Texas, Karen's upbringing instilled in her a strong sense of justice. After completing high school, she took a series of jobs before landing a position at the Kerr-McGee Nuclear Corporation's plutonium processing plant in Crescent, Oklahoma, in the early 1970s. At Kerr-McGee, Karen quickly grew concerned about the work environment and safety standards. Employees often worked with plutonium, a highly toxic radioactive element, under conditions that she believed endangered both their health and safety. Karen realized that the company was not adequately protecting its workers, either from the dangerous materials they handled or from the radiation exposure that came with their jobs. As she gathered information about safety violations, Silkwood began documenting her experiences. She learned about improper safety practices, such as inadequate protective equipment, poor ventilation, and contamination of the work environment. The most alarming aspect of her findings was that the company was falsifying records, concealing evidence of contamination, and failing to disclose the health risks associated with their work to employees. Fueled by a sense of responsibility and determination, Karen became actively involved in union activities, seeking to advocate for her fellow workers. She joined the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union and soon took on a leadership role, becoming a fierce advocate for safer working conditions. Her efforts included organizing meetings, rallying workers, and calling for greater accountability from company management. In the fall of 1974, Silkwood's activism reached a new level when she began to accumulate evidence against Kerr McGee. During this time, Karen discovered that she had been contaminated with plutonium. Alarmed by the potential consequences, she reached out to the media, hoping to expose the company's negligence. Silkwood's courage in the face of intimidation did not go unnoticed, and she caught the attention of prominent journalists and activists who were eager to learn more about her situation. As she prepared to meet with the New York Times, Silkwood encountered a series of strange and threatening events that intensified her fears for her safety. Weekly reports of harassment and intimidation from company officials further drove home the idea that she was stepping into dangerous territory. On November 13, 1974, Karen Silkwood was driving to meet the reporter when her life took a tragic turn. While driving on a darkened road in Oklahoma, Silkwood died in a car accident under suspicious circumstances. Her car veered off the road and crashed, prompting immediate speculation by many who knew her. There was a sense of disbelief regarding the events that unfolded. Was it truly an accident, or was it something more sinister? Initial investigations concluded that the accident was, in fact, just that, a tragic accident. However, doubts lingered. Some of her supporters believed that Silkwood was deliberately murdered to prevent her from exposing Kerr McGee's wrongdoing. There were rumors that her car was tampered with, and the unsettling nature of her death aroused a strong sense of conspiracy surrounding the case. Following her death, the legacy of Karen Silkwood lived on. Her story inspired countless others to speak up about injustices in the workplace and laid the groundwork for increased scrutiny of the nuclear industry. Silkwood's case drew national attention and raised awareness of safety violations in nuclear facilities, highlighting the need for stronger regulations and oversight. The events surrounding Karen Silkwood's life and untimely death prompted governmental investigations into Kerr McGee. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, became involved, and the company faced numerous allegations related to its handling of hazardous materials and worker safety. Years of litigation followed, and her efforts contributed to significant changes in how the nuclear industry approached workplace safety. In 1979, Silkwood was posthumously honored for her bravery and activism in the face of overwhelming odds. A film titled Silkwood, released in 1983, brought her story to a wider audience and sparked national conversations regarding the ethics of the nuclear industry, whistleblowing, and workers' rights. The film starred Meryl Streep as Karen Silkwood and received critical acclaim, further cementing Silkwood's status as an emblem of courage and integrity. Today, Karen Silkwood is remembered as a symbol of the fight for workplace rights and whistleblowing protection. Her endeavors ignited conversations about corporate accountability, ethical standards in industry practices, and the importance of worker safety. Organizations advocating for labor rights, environmental safety, and whistleblower protections often cite Silkwood's legacy as a critical influence in their missions. In today's world, Silkwood's story resonates even more powerfully as we continuously confront industrial hazards, environmental concerns, and corporate transparency issues. The conversations she sparked are just as relevant now as they were during her lifetime. Her legacy serves as a compelling reminder to hold corporations accountable and to ensure that workers have a voice when it comes to their safety. Karen Silkwood's life and legacy remain a poignant narrative in the ongoing battle for worker safety and justice. Her story exemplifies that even in the face of immense power and adversity, one individual can make a significant difference. The courage to speak out in the face of danger continues to inspire many and highlights the importance of standing up for the truth, regardless of the stakes. The echoes of her fight reverberate through time, reminding us that the pursuit of justice and safety in the workplace is an ongoing struggle that requires vigilance and relentless dedication. As we reflect on Karen Silkwood's legacy, we are compelled to consider the ongoing challenges faced by workers in various industries who risk their livelihoods to speak up about unsafe practices. The torch she lit continues to burn, encouraging individuals and organizations alike to foster a culture of safety, integrity, and respect for human life. From the insights and lessons learned through her story, it becomes evident that advocacy for worker safety, ethical corporate behavior, and the protection of whistleblowers are crucial elements in creating a healthier and more just society. The case of Karen Silkwood serves as a call to action, urging us to remain vigilant and courageous as we confront issues of safety and accountability in the modern world. Surely, the lessons from her life will continue to resonate for generations to come, reminding us that every individual has the power to inspire change and confront injustice, no matter how daunting it may seem. In the fall of 2002, residents of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area were gripped by fear as a series of random shootings unfolded, changing their lives and community forever. These incidents would come to be known as the Beltway Sniper Attacks, and they would leave a deep mark on the victims, the city, and law enforcement agencies. Understanding this complex case requires an exploration of the chilling events that transpired, the investigation that followed, and the individuals involved. The attacks began on October 2, 2002. Over the course of just a few weeks, the snipers struck 10 times, resulting in the deaths of 10 people and injuring 3 others. The shootings appeared random and were carried out at various locations, including gas stations, grocery stores, and even a school. The randomness of the attacks created a sense of paranoia among residents, as they were unsure of where the next shot might come from. This environment fostered an atmosphere of tension and anxiety, with neighbors avoiding outdoor activities and children being kept inside from fear of being targeted. The investigations quickly mobilized a vast network of law enforcement, combining local police with federal agencies like the FBI. The initial challenge was to make sense of the pattern of violence. The elusive nature of the perpetrators added to the complexity of the case. For weeks they remained unseen, successfully evading capture and taunting authorities. As nerves frayed, the public actively sought information from the media, awaiting updates that would shed light on the investigation. Authorities became increasingly reliant on tips from the community, messages from the victims' families, and the analysis of the crime scenes. Investigators worked tirelessly to retrace the steps of the shooters, collecting evidence and reviewing surveillance videos in hopes of identifying any leads. With each new incident, they released information to the public describing the suspects and urging anyone who had witnessed anything unusual to come forward. Yet, each day without resolution deepened the community's dread, as the snipers' cold calculations and untraceable tactics only heightened their fear. Amid the growing tension, a series of weapon-related clues began to emerge. The attacks primarily utilized a high-powered rifle, leading investigators to theorize about the possible expertise of the snipers. The crime scenes revealed little, except for shell casings left behind, which would shape the investigation. Forensic analysis of these casings pointed to the same firearm being used, establishing a link between the crimes and underscoring the coordinated efforts of the attackers. Meanwhile, the fear was further perpetuated by the media's coverage of the events. Television broadcasts filled homes with reports of the latest shootings and bulletins detailing any updates in the investigation. The intense media scrutiny gave the public an ever-present reminder of the threats lingering in their neighborhoods. This constant coverage put pressure on law enforcement to find the perpetrators and restore a sense of safety. They were aware of the eyes of the nation watching closely, eager to see justice served. On October 24, 2002, a significant break in the case occurred. Law enforcement received a tip that led them to a motel in Maryland, where they apprehended 2 men, John Allen Muhammad and his teenage accomplice Lee Boyd Malvo. In a surprising twist, the 2 were found with incriminating evidence, including firearms and equipment that confirmed their involvement. As the investigation deepened, it was revealed that the pair had a disturbing backstory, characterized by a complex relationship that included manipulation and psychological conditioning. Muhammad was a Gulf War veteran and had a history of instability. His background painted a picture of a man with deeply rooted issues, who used Malvo as a pawn in a twisted plan of vengeance and chaos. Malvo, a teenager at the time, fell under Muhammad's influence and showcased a level of loyalty that blurred the lines of right and wrong. The depravity of their actions raised questions about the nature of their partnership, whether it was driven by ideology, a desire for attention, or something darker. Once in custody, both men faced extensive interrogation. Their motives and intentions began to unravel, revealing a disturbing narrative that had culminated in the tragic events of that autumn. Through their conversations with investigators, a clearer picture of their motivations emerged. Muhammad and Malvo had initially intended for their attacks to symbolize a larger message, but over time they became infatuated with the notion of creating widespread terror. The media narrative spun into a frenzy as details of their actions emerged. The questions surrounding their processes and reasoning captured the attention of not just the local populace, but the entire nation. Documentaries, news specials, and even movies would later be produced, chronicling these events and examining the psychological elements at play. As society grappled with the intricacies of their relationship, experts from various fields stepped in to provide insight into the minds of the killers. The legal proceedings that followed captured national attention. Alfred Muhammad and Lee Malvo were charged with murder. The courtroom became a battleground of arguments regarding mental health and individual culpability. Malvo, despite his young age, was subjected to an intense focus on his actions and their implications. His age raised debates about responsibility and whether his influence from Muhammad clouded his judgment. Throughout the trial, the families of the victims sought closure, each testimony a reminder of the lives lost in this senseless reign of terror. In the end, justice took different forms for both men. Muhammad was sentenced to death in Virginia, while Malvo received life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The resolution brought a degree of satisfaction to those who had lived in fear and loss. Yet, the wounds left behind ran deep. The community was forever altered by the trauma experienced during those weeks of violent unpredictability. Reflecting on the Beltway Sniper attacks, it is clear that the aftermath extended beyond mere legal proceedings. The events prompted discussions on community safety, gun control, and mental health. The psychological impact on the victims' families and the broader community remained long after the snipers were apprehended. Victims became symbols of resilience, their stories serving as reminders of the fragility of life and the importance of vigilance in the face of adversity. To this day, the Beltway Sniper attacks stand as a poignant reminder of how quickly fear can infiltrate everyday life. Although the perpetrators were apprehended and justice was meted out, the community continues to strive for healing, navigating the complex aftermath of the attacks. The events of fall 2002 changed not just law enforcement policies, but also the way that residents approached their lives in the shadow of fear. By examining this chilling episode in American history, one can appreciate the multitude of factors at play, how an individual can influence another, the impact of societal fear, and the everlasting quest for safety and justice. The narratives surrounding these attacks remind us that the collective memory of a community can withstand even the darkest of times, ultimately emerging to create a future forged by resilience and unity. Project Megiddo was a fascinating initiative launched by the FBI at the turn of the millennium. This project emerged during a time of significant societal change and uncertainty as the world approached the year 2000. The report generated by Project Megiddo addressed concerns regarding domestic terrorism and potential threats stemming from various extremist groups, particularly in the context of the Y2K phenomenon. As the clock ticked down toward January 1, 2000, there was widespread anxiety over the so-called Y2K bug, which was believed to pose a substantial risk to computer systems globally. The fear was that critical infrastructures, including banking, transportation, and utilities, could malfunction, leading to chaos and disruption. In response to this overwhelming concern, the FBI's Project Megiddo sought to identify and assess various threats that might surface as people prepared for the new millennium. The report highlighted various groups, including those with apocalyptic ideologies, white supremacists, and other extremist factions that were perceived to be at risk of engaging in violent activities during this tumultuous period. It made a case for vigilance, urging law enforcement agencies to be aware of and prepared for possible incidents of domestic terrorism. The rise of the internet had allowed for the rapid spread of extremist ideologies, making it easier for groups to connect and organize. Platforms that facilitated communication and planning for acts of violence were becoming more prevalent, raising further alarms for federal agencies. Among the key elements discussed in Project Megiddo was the potential for violence by individuals or groups believing that the new millennium could signify a prophetic event or a major societal upheaval. Some groups deemed, quote, millenarians interpreted the arrival of the year 2000 as a chance for a climactic confrontation. These individuals often anticipated upheaval, wishing to trigger chaos that aligned with their beliefs. The report emphasized the importance of understanding these ideologies to effectively mitigate risks. At the core of the FBI's analysis was an understanding of past incidents of domestic terrorism. Various historical events were scrutinized to better draw correlations between extremist beliefs and violent actions. The Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, for instance, was a chilling reminder of the potential dangers posed by homegrown extremists. The Project Megiddo report urged law enforcement to remain watchful for any similar patterns of behavior as the world entered a new era. Project Megiddo also touched upon the emergence of new technologies and their implications. The late 1990s saw the advent of online communication channels that could inspire and galvanize individuals with dangerous agendas. The internet provided a platform for radicalization, allowing like-minded individuals to rally around common goals. The FBI recognized that such technological advancements could play dual roles. They could be used for both good and harm. For every peaceful revolutionary group, there was the potential for a violent counterpart exploiting these same tools. One standout example, noted in the report, was the way in which the internet was already aiding some preparations for unlawful actions. With the click of a button, individuals could access vast amounts of information related to explosives, weaponry, or tactics for evading law enforcement efforts. Additionally, chat rooms and online forums made it easier for members of fringe groups to coordinate their activities. Such access to information created a new landscape for potential threats, making it critical for law enforcement to adapt to these evolving challenges. As the report was shared with law enforcement agencies, training sessions and briefings began to incorporate its findings. The FBI's initiative was not just about identifying risks, but educating local police forces on how to recognize, report, and respond to suspicious activities. In many ways, the Project Megiddo report laid the groundwork for more extensive assessments and investigations in the years that followed. The importance of community engagement was also highlighted as a key takeaway from Project Megiddo. Law enforcement agencies began to recognize that local communities often play a vital role in identifying vulnerable individuals who might be drawn to extremist ideologies. By fostering relationships between law enforcement officials and community members, the FBI aimed to create channels for information sharing and the prevention of radicalization among vulnerable populations. Moreover, Project Megiddo underscored the role of vigilance in everyday life. The report encouraged citizens to be aware of their surroundings and report any suspicious activity without falling into the trap of unwarranted paranoia. The notion was that everyone shares a responsibility in maintaining a safe environment, and the first line of defense often lies with ordinary citizens. In subsequent years, many of the insights from Project Megiddo became pivotal in shaping the FBI's approach to Homeland Security. The ideals and reasoning within the report opened the door for more comprehensive strategies aimed at identifying threats of domestic terrorism and extremist violence. It served as a reminder that threats could come from various angles and that only through collaborative efforts could society stand resilient in the face of potential violence. As the 21st century unfolded, the lessons learned from Project Megiddo carried forward, with many of the same themes permeating discussions on national security and community safety. The blending of technology with traditional modes of activism and ideology has only intensified since then, evolving into new forms and expressions of extremism. The discussion around Project Megiddo remains relevant today, as it speaks to larger issues surrounding freedom, security, and the challenges of understanding radical beliefs in a rapidly changing world. As our society continues to navigate these complexities, the importance of a nuanced approach that encompasses education, vigilance, and community involvement remains critical. In the broader historical context, Project Megiddo may serve as a case study to highlight how governmental agencies adapt to societal changes in response to emerging threats. The anticipation of potential crises based on historical precedent reinforces the need for adaptive measures and responsive communities. Regardless of the epoch, the focus on communication, collaboration, and proactive measures stands as a fundamental theme in navigating the intricacies of modern societal dynamics. In conclusion, Project Megiddo provided crucial insights and actionable information as we crossed into the new millennium. This initiative not only shaped law enforcement strategies, but also contributed to a larger dialogue about community safety and the need for awareness in confronting potential threats. As we continue to progress into an era marked by technological advancements and cultural shifts, understanding the legacy of projects like Megiddo remains pivotal to fostering a safe and resilient society. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, located in Boston, Massachusetts, is not just an art institution. It is a vibrant testament to the life and vision of its founder, Isabella Stewart Gardner. Born in 1840, Gardner was a notable patron of the arts and played a crucial role in the cultural development of Boston in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Her museum, designed to resemble a Venetian palazzo, showcases a diverse collection of art from different periods and regions, including European, Asian, and American works. However, the museum is perhaps most infamous for an event that occurred on March 18, 1990. On that night, two men dressed as police officers entered the museum, claiming to respond to a disturbance. Instead, They executed a meticulous plan that would lead to one of the largest and most perplexing art thefts in history. Over the next 81 minutes, the duo managed to steal 13 pieces of art valued at over $500 million. Among the most notable works taken were paintings by masters such as Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Degas. One of the stolen pieces, Vermeer's The Concert, is especially significant, being one of only 36 known works by the Dutch master. Another critical loss was Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, which had immense historical and artistic value, not only because of the painter's renown, but also given that it was his only seascape. The thieves had done their homework. They had likely studied the museum's layout, security protocols, and even its staff. They methodically moved through the museum, disabling alarms and surveillance cameras, all while the staff was held captive. The heist's orchestrators showed remarkable control and precision as they were able to remove the artworks with minimal disturbance. They exited the museum with the stolen pieces in hand, disappearing into the Boston night, leaving the institution, its staff, and the art world in shock. In the months following the heist, investigations unfolded. Law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, became involved, but leads were scarce. Witnesses claimed to have seen the thieves, but no definitive descriptions materialized. The crime captivated the public, drawing parallels with literary thief characters and further embedding itself into the cultural narrative of art theft. Various theories have emerged over the years regarding the identity of the thieves. Some speculate they were connected to organized crime, perhaps using the stolen art as bargaining chips for other criminal activities. The art market's secrecy can often obscure the whereabouts of stolen pieces, complicating recovery efforts. The Gardner Museum's management, dedicated to not only recovering the lost masterpieces, but also maintaining the integrity of Gardner's vision, decided to keep the spaces from which the art was stolen empty. Each empty frame serves as a poignant reminder of what is missing, and it reflects the museum's commitment to those works of art and their rightful place in the collection. Over the years, several potential solutions have been proposed. There have been claims from individuals and organizations alike who profess to know where the art currently resides. A dubious letter surfaced, claiming to offer information regarding the artworks, yet it proved unsubstantiated. Periodically, the FBI will offer a reward for information leading to the recovery of the missing pieces, hoping that someone with knowledge will come forward. Pop culture has also taken an interest in this intriguing heist. Books, documentaries, and even films have sought to portray the mystery surrounding the Gardner theft. These adaptations often dramatize the heist, emphasizing the audacity of the criminals and the allure of the stolen works. Artists and creators are drawn to the romance of the heist, where art is not just a commodity but a symbol of cultural heritage intertwined with human stories. As years turned into decades, the Gardner heist has ensconced itself in the lore of art theft. The case remains open, and it continues to inspire thrillers and discussions about how art is valued in society. The stolen pieces have become icons of loss, but they also represent the idea that art transcends its physical form. Isabella Stewart Gardner's vision was to create a space where art could be appreciated in a beautiful setting. Despite the theft, the museum continues to thrive, offering a glimpse into a world filled with creativity and expression. The strength of the Gardner community, along with its protective shadow, ensures that the spirit of art remains ever present. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum stands resilient and continues its mission of presenting art and culture to the public. It serves as a reminder of the beauty that was lost, but also the hope that it will be returned. The art world watches closely, awaiting a resolution to this extraordinary saga. As new advancements in technology and investigative methods evolve, there remains a glimmer of hope that the masterpieces may eventually be recovered. The Gardner robbery is much more than just a tale of stolen artwork. It is a story about cultural heritage, the lengths one might go to preserve beauty, and the enduring mystery of what lies beneath the surface of human creativity. The investigation remains a testament to the dedication of those seeking justice and the pursuit of lost treasures that encapsulate human history and artistic achievement. Listeners may wonder about the fates of those who orchestrated the theft. Did they get away with it? Were they ever caught? Or did they live their lives under the weight of their actions? These questions draw curiosity that could lead to a larger conversation about art's value in society, the dark side of human ambition, and the differing perceptions of ownership. In personal reflections, many might consider what art means in their lives, the importance of preserving cultural heritage for future generations, and how much they would be willing to protect it. The Gardner heist reminds us of our shared responsibility towards artworks that encapsulate the creativity and expressions of those who came before us. As one contemplates the legacy of art, the question of what defines a masterpiece becomes tantalizing. In the end, the Isabella Stewart Gardner heist stands as a dichotomy, an event heralded as both an enormous loss and an invitation to ponder the complexities of art, identity, and memory. The enduring mystery leaves us with a lingering sense of connection to those remarkable works, whether they remain lost or ultimately resurface, reviving the conversations and narratives they once inspired.